What is going on, YouTube people? It is channel birthday live stream. Nothing special planned. We may have some special guests. We may not. I don't know. I didn't set up anything formal. I did send the invite out to a few people, so we'll see if anyone has the ability to pop in. So no promises on that one. But yeah, just kind of like an annual tradition that I have done some sort of live stream on the channel birthday. All right, just one second, folks. But yeah, 3 years. 3 years ago today, I hit the old upload video button. I had no idea what I was doing. Was happy when I got my first 10 views. And, you know, here we sit today. An interesting journey that it has been. We got a lot of comments coming in already. Card craze. Thanks, Craven. M Perk had a good national time with the old M Perk back in Chicago. What's up, Dave? What's up, Ziggy? What's up, Tony? What's up, Legacy? What's up, Andrew? What's up, Rick? What's up, Robert? Have to say I've been watching since the inception. Wow, Mike D. Whew. Ziggy just had a channel birthday as well. He started his just a couple days before mine. Thank you, Scott. Hopefully. I have not checked out Veriswap at all. I have heard about it. I have done nothing with it. I don't know. I generally speaking do not like. Well, actually, I don't even know how it works. Do you have to have your stuff vaulted with them to do that, or do you like mail it to a third party? Like once a trade's done, and then they mail it to the person, and vice versa. I honestly have no idea how it works. I like to do my trades in person. That's the fun part, is negotiating trades in person. But yes, 3 years. If you told me when I started this whole kit and caboodle that I would have almost 14,000 subscribers, I've interviewed presidents and CEOs of grading companies and gone to nationals and Comic-Cons and box openings in CGC's booth and all the nonsense that we've done over the years. Whew, I would have called you a liar. I think it was the 90 Universe card episode that drew me in. That is still the most watched video on the channel, sitting just north of, I believe, 40,000 views. That video is still number one. I am almost positive. Let me look here. I am. Yes. 42,000. We'll do a little screen share here. Let's do a little YouTube rabbit hole here. There we go. This is going to be very hard to see, most likely. Let's see if I can give us some zoom. So most viewed videos on the channel. Number one is that Marvel Universe video on 1990. That is sitting at just under 42,000 views. The tips and tricks to finding retail, that was a big one. That was probably one of that actually might be the most important video that I ever made. That got 35,000 views, but you notice that was only a month after I started the channel. That video did a lot of work for me in the early days. Then it was the Marvel video, a random YouTube short. Surprisingly enough, third place of legitimate videos was Spider-Man Metal box opening. Did not expect that to get that crazy. And then the next one is a PSA price increase video. Non-sports trading cards, grading, Marvel, grading. Here's two fun ones. I noticed these the other day. This is when PSA, there was rumors going around that PSA was going to jack their prices to the moon back in 2021. And this is the video on that. And then the next viewed video in terms of number of total views is when PSA shut down all submission levels back in March 30th. Boy, have we come a long way. March 30th, 2021, PSA said, nope, don't send us any cards. We don't want any. We got enough. We can't handle it. To what are we now? May 18th, 2023. And they're churning out like 1.25 million cards per month. So wild stuff. Let me zoom back out here. Otherwise, I'll be all messed up. We'll trip down memory lane there. I drastically fell behind on class. G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe / D&D card thing was, I think, I'm trying to think, in terms of like most memorable moments on the channel, were that probably is number one when I opened the box in 90 Marvel Universe and it was D&D cards inside. I still have the box. It sits right there. I point to it every once in a while, but that is the box with the packs still in it that I opened up that fateful day on that live stream. And then I think the most second wild time was probably when there was a bunch of us opening Spider-Man metal packs and we hit 4 PMGs out of one pack of Spider-Man metal. That was pretty wild as well. But I think the D&D thing takes the cake because I was just stunned. I remember opening the box and I was looking up, not down, reading chat or looking at something off screen. I don't remember, but chat noticed things had gone sideways on the box before I did because I had opened the box and looked to the side and then turned down and looked down and noticed that that is not 90 Marvel Universe packs, ladies and gentlemen. That is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons packs. And then, of course, it played right into the Logan Paul G.I. Joe stuff, which that all kind of happened around the same time. So, what's up, Matthew? What's up, Mark? Charles, what's going on? DAGR cards. Charles, are you into the Chicago National yet, or are you waiting to see if you win another Steve's one of flipping Steve's rigged giveaways? Steve's giveaways are not rigged, by the way. I'm just joking. I had a great time hanging out with Charles at the National in Atlantic City and at the Atlanta Card Show. God, was that 2 years ago now? It's crazy how fast time flies. That was the most underrated part of doing this entire thing, like just kind of, reminiscing / YouTube world, whatever, over the last few years, is the amount of people that I have met and friends that I have made only because I chose to do content. And I'm not just talking about content creators. Like, obviously, I've made friends with a lot of different content creators over the years, from, Dustin and Steve and Dakota, Reggie over at Reggie Collects, Mickey at Swaggle Haas, Carlos Bobbles, Michael Ham. Just, there's so many people that I'm going to forget to name someone. And, I've gotten a chance to meet these people and hang out in person, but then just like a lot of other people, especially at my local shows, Brad from the Shipshawana show, that I just formed relationships and friendships with that probably would have never happened if I never decided to do this whole thing. Yeah, I got. Yep. Crazy Kaz, remember, I got. Second most wild time was when I told you I was purchasing Pokemon cards. The only thing that could top that is if I open Pokemon cards. That would be the only thing that could probably top me buying Pokemon cards. There's Steven. Steven is a perfect example. I don't know that I would have ever met or become friends with Steven if I did not make content. I mean, maybe it could have happened, but I don't know. Steven used to set up at a lot of my local shows, and then we chat all the time now. I gave his kid some Spider-Man cards. Now he runs up to me at every show and asks for more Spider-Man cards. It's great. Burnt yourself out traveling to 5 shows last year. Sheesh. It is a fun little thing that I like to do every once in a while is I'll go back and kind of look to see like what were the hot topics like a year ago or 2 years ago. Like what was I making videos on in May of 2022 and May of 2021? That's always intriguing to kind of see one, how things have changed over time, and then also how some things really haven't changed. Go back a year. What am I talking about? Card cleaning, card trimming. Okay, well, what do you know? We're talking about that again. Someone scammed someone on wax or on a break. Oh, what do you know? We're talking about that again. Oh, some grading company did something dumb. Oh, what do you know? We're talking about that again. That's the fun part of it is really cyclical in some natures. But then you see wild stuff like that PSA video where it's like 2 years ago they're just closing down services, and now that just seems like it was really, that feels like it was a lifetime ago when that day came that they completely shut down. That was crazy. Probably the only, I'm trying to think the craziest news story in the history of the channel. Probably the Fanatics acquisition of Topps is probably the biggest thing that's happened, in all honesty. What's up, Paul? Paul likes to give me crap all the time. We always pick at each other back and forth in Dakota's Discord. Yes, there was an oh no right before the I got M-Perk is correct on that one. I have not ordered any Bowman Chrome University hobby or blasters yet. may get a couple hobby boxes. I'm kind of in the I hate to say roll the dice, but just kind of see what Topps puts it up for on their website and see what happens. I don't know. So yeah, indeed, Steven, like you, Cody, Gene and Nick, just Mike that runs the Canton show, just like a lot of people that I would have never, probably interacted with to the level that I do today if I was just like random show attendee. Yeah, PWC getting the boot was a big one too, for sure. For sure. Anything in regards to the views, it would be the PSA stuff. Like if you're using that as a judge. What's up, Steve? Is yeah, I like doing that. I didn't do one this year. I usually do something kind of like that on the channel birthday, but I did one last year, and I don't know that much has changed in the last year to evolve that much. But that was almost for my own documentation purposes. So 10 years from now when my memory's gone, hell, next year when my memory's gone, I have like a documented record of like how I got to where I am today, like what went sideways. Swags is another one. Going to ships. Leaning that way, yes. Have not booked anything yet, but I'm leaning towards going. I'll know more. I'll probably lock that in early this week, most likely. Oh boy. If you had time to produce more content, what additional content would that be? Sheesh. I wouldn't mind. I'll give 2 answers to this question because there's 2 things that I wouldn't mind doing, but I wouldn't do them on this channel. I don't think. I would split them out into their own thing and just create like a new channel, and that's where it would go. One would just be just general sports talk, like not card related stuff. Just like your normal afternoon drive nonsense like that. I don't want to say that style, but just, general all-purpose sports talk, kind of whatever the hot button topic of the day, week, however often it would be, is. Part of that is when I was a kid, when me and my dad, whatever, anytime we would go somewhere, we'd always listen to sports talk radio, and I just love sports talk radio. All through high school and college, all I would listen to was sports talk radio. I hardly ever listen to music. I always listen to, like, locally, like WKNR, WTAM, Trevisano, and some of the national shows. I listened to Jim Rome a little bit back in the day, but never really, like, he was probably the biggest national guy that I listened to. A lot of, like, fantasy sports content and stuff. And I always really liked that. And I always like, man, it would be awesome to be on the radio. So this is as close as I ever got. But that would be interesting, just doing straight up sports talk. The other thing that would be cool as well is just straight, like, I don't want to say like nerd talk, but like MCU talk, like, basically the sports talk equivalent of like Marvel, not necessarily comic specific, but like Marvel and Star Wars and like basically pop culture, I guess. Like a pop culture style channel that just kind of hit on various pop culture issues, whatever the zeitgeist is at the time. I think that would be fun as well. But once again, that would need to be split out into its own thing. It doesn't make sense here. The YouTube algorithm gets a little weird when you kind of go off script sometimes on stuff. One, because the audience isn't expecting you to talk about a topic like that, and two, it's not. I think it, like, when you tag a video a certain way and it's not how you normally do, I feel like it doesn't reward you as much. So I have no idea if that's true or not. The YouTube algorithm is a fickle beast. So thank you, Paul. Lunch and YouTube ritual for me. I get a lot of the most common one that I get is on the Sunday morning weekly one is like coffee in church or like after church or something along those lines on for the Sunday morning one. Coffee with Neo on Sunday mornings. I get that one a lot. Would I ever get into breaking? No, absolutely not. Zero chance. I do not have the patience for the sorting and shipping aspect that comes with breaking. I would not want to do it. And there's just too much nonsense that comes along with breaking. Do you think Morant should get a long suspension? No. Will he get a long suspension? Yes. If I do content on NFT and cryptos, I'm pulling the plug. I will pull the plug on the camera before I do content on NFT and crypto. Hey, Gene, what's up? Pete Franklin before my time. I was a Triv guy, big Triv guy. Rest in peace. Philly Joe, what's going on, buddy? Dave grew up listening to WJR. Yep. Even today, like when it comes to a lot of sports, basketball not and football not, but like baseball, I prefer to listen to baseball on the radio. Give me like the back porch, a nice evening, my iPad and Tom Hamilton, and I am set. If LeBron wins another ring, is he the GOAT? I said this in the video the other day. Jordan is the best player. LeBron has the best career. That's the way that I break those two down. If Elon does what he says about a 50-50 split with content creators, will you make the move to Twitter? Probably not, because my Twitter following is minuscule compared to my YouTube following, and YouTube is a 50-50 split. So Google splits the ad revenue with you 50-50 as well, or damn near close to 50-50. So that's really not that much different. If anything, I would just post both places, if that makes sense. Best and worst card play over the 3 years. Best is probably. I'm going to take this two directions. The Vlad Blue PSA 10 flip was probably my best. I bought it and sold it for a higher amount purchase because that was in a very short amount of time. And I made like $1,500 on that transaction in a very short period. Rada Grade is kind of a different bag of cats. I pulled, which I've told the story before, funnily enough, the night that I opened the box of 90 Marvel Universe that went sideways, that I didn't end up opening, I opened a box of 92 Jim Lee X-Men instead because I still wanted to open something on the live stream. And in that box, I opened a Wolverine hologram, and I sent it in a PSA, and it got a PSA 10. And I sold that card for a considerable amount of money. That is my best pure profit flip because that box cost me like $60. I bought that pre-boom, opened it, and I sold that card for multiple thousands of dollars. So that was the biggest. The worst. Oh, what was the worst? I'm trying to think. I have to really think about that one. Probably something Trae Young related. And it's probably something that I haven't sold yet, honestly. Like I have that Trae Young Red Mosaic PSA 10. I think I bought that for like $900 during the boom, and it's currently at like $160 or something like that. And some of my LeBron refractors, my Chalk Toss, my second year LeBron refractor, and the other LeBron refractor I have are all way under, like $1,000 or more under than what I paid for them. But I don't see myself necessarily selling those. So, that transaction hasn't happened. So it's kind of weird to count that one. I don't know. Look, Striker coming in with the super chat. What's up, Striker? One release that I missed out on that I regret the most. Let me think about this one that I missed. Trying to think of one that I missed. There was a couple. I didn't miss it, but like I only bought one box. Like some, and this is actually going to lead me. It's a good segue, Striker. You read my mind about a question that we had in the chat. There's been a couple times I passed on Bowman Sapphire or bought like one box of various Bowman Sapphire over the last few years, and like immediately regretted just not maxing the cart quantity. I wish I would have bought more Spider-Man metal. That was really fun to open, but I did buy some, so I can't treat that as a pure miss. I'm sure there's something, but nothing's hopping to the mind that I just straight completely whiffed on. I don't know. Shawn Michaels is on my desk right now. Let me filter back up here because there was a question about Bowman Sapphire, and I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit. Where did it go? Here we go. Thoughts on the Sapphire money grab. All right, let's talk about Bowman Sapphire for a minute. I'm going to fall behind on chat. I thank all of you for coming in and saying congrats and watching the channel and everything, but I'm drastically going to fall behind on chat here. I can already tell. So let's talk Bowman Sapphire. It's Dutch auction tomorrow. I don't have a problem with them doing a Dutch auction. I have a problem with the format of the Dutch auction that they're doing because they are not doing. If they're going to do Dutch auction, I like the version that Luber pitched. And I know that, Luber doesn't even really work there anymore. I think he's completely gone. But the difference is that everyone pays the same price instead of just paying whatever you FOMO'd into. And I don't believe that they set a floor price when Zero Cool did it either. If they were doing it like that, I would be perfectly fine with it. Because here's the thing. And I don't know that people realize this. And I realized it, but I don't know that I realized it to the extent. They really cut the print run of this product. The way that I understand it, it is cut in half from last year's Bowman Sapphire release. So they cut the print run. They cut the autograph checklist. So like the autograph checklist is tight. And same with the parallels. There's not a billion different parallels. So you're probably going to hit a good parallel in your box because there's just not a lot of high numbered ones out there. So from their perspective, they're like, listen, you guys whine and cry about print runs. Here we are. We're giving you a product that is a limited print run, has good parallels, guaranteed auto, and not a bloated auto checklist. Like if I laid that out to you 6 months ago and said, this is what Fanatics is going to do with an upper tier product, we would all cheer. We'd be like, yes, this is great. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. The problem I have is with how they're selling it. I just don't like the Panini Dutch auction model, and that's exactly what they're doing. I would prefer they did the model if they want to sell it that way. And I'm like, once again, I am fine with them selling it that way. It sets really the true market price for the product if they do it the zero cool way. And I know people hate zero cool, whatever, but their method of selling cards was actually pretty good from a perspective like this. So if you put out a good product, have faith in your product, don't put a floor price on it. And if it's a good product, the market's going to respond to that and buy it up. That's my general thoughts on it. Like even the 350 floor price, people are mad about that. 350, if that just went up at 350, it would sell out instantly because of the print run. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have a loaded product with limited print run go up for 199. But on the flip side, just don't use the Panini Dutch auction model. There's better ways to sell a limited release product like that. That's my issue with Bowman Sapphire. Will I chase it tomorrow? I'm going to keep a close eye on it. I don't know that it's going to get to a number that I feel comfortable buying it at. That's the only thing. I like buying wax. I don't like tying up a ton of money in wax. I'd like to get like 2 boxes, maybe even 3, rip 1, stash 2. But it's probably not going to happen. I have a feeling it's probably going to sell out way higher than what I think it will. So, sorry, I'm probably going to miss some questions. I'm just kind of throwing that out there now. What was the peak content for you? Some of the late night live streams were a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out with Dakota and crew on some crazy wild live streams, listening to Dakota's terrible NBA takes. If you're watching, you have the worst NBA takes ever. And you're not coming on because you didn't want to, so you can't come on and defend yourself. So I can just sit here and talk trash. How do you find someone new to PC? I think you kind of answered your own question. It does just kind of happen naturally. It can't be like a vision quest, in my opinion anyways. Someone else might answer that question differently. Any updates on Beckett grading? No, not yet. I have to imagine they're going to do something sooner rather than later because it looks like, their volume has been decreasing like crazy because why in your right mind would you send a card to Beckett right now when you don't know what is going to happen? Depending on your price point that you bought in at, Chris, you still might be okay on some of that stuff. I don't know. Even the Baker stuff, like in terms of worst losses, I guess I got hammered on the Baker RPA. I kind of forgot about that. That would probably be on the short list of cards that I took a bloodbath on. Favorite types of cards to collect? I am really digging. I'm going to give 2 answers here. Marvel and specifically pop culture related. I'm really having fun chasing Star Wars Stellar stuff. I picked up the Harrison Ford, the Pedro Pascal. I just picked up the Jyn Erso. I've been having a lot of fun chasing that stuff. I answered that already. Sorry. Thoughts on the comic book market moving forward? Listen, I've gotten so many comments. When are you going to do a comic book video, Neil? When are you going to do a comic book video? How come you haven't done any comic book content? Saturday morning. The video is recorded. It is uploaded. It is edited. You are going to get an over 1 hour episode of me talking nothing but comic books. I brought a special guest on, myself, and I'll spoil it, hype the video up a little bit because it probably won't perform very well in all honesty. So everyone asking for comic book content, I expect you to watch all 90 minutes of this. It's not quite that long because I know that this video will perform like crap, but I don't really care. That's not why I recorded it. Myself and Swaggle my friend of the channel, Swaggle over at Swaggle Comics and Games, sat down and talked comic market for well over an hour. We talked, has the market hit the floor? Ultra modern comic collecting / investing and how wild and crazy that space is. We had a really good conversation to close out the video, like the last 15, 20 minutes, about card cleaning versus comic cleaning and altering and like that whole situation. Wide ranging topics. Really good video. I always have a great time talking to Swags. One of the better people that I have met in this wild world of content. They let you buy them back. They do indeed. If I ever make t-shirts, that will be what's on it. I didn't know. Are you trolling right now, Gene? Is Topps Chrome Tennis actually a real product? Sorry, I'm just playing catch up in chat for a second, making sure I am not picking up anything crazy. Michael Ham, what's going on, buddy? Ham, are you locked in for Chicago? Or are we going to go on some pizza adventures? I miss pizza adventures next time. Yeah, I would say between 4 and 500 would be my guess. I don't think it slips below 4. I could be wrong. I would like to see it slip below 4. I'd be a buyer if it slipped below 4. That was pre-me buying wax. Is Dakota still around? Dakota is 100% fully retired from the content world, but he is still around. He is active in his Discord. I talk to Dakota just about every day, unfortunately. Thank you, Collector Stream. I've never done it, so I can't speak to it. That is not my style, the way I want to live life. I love going to card shows, but I don't know about flying around them all the time. Hey, Bazooka Tom, what's going on, buddy? You have been around for a while. Well, yeah, if you paid retail for it, then you were still doing just fine on 2019 wax. Thank you for iCards. Picking up any Marvel cards. I'm not actively chasing anything currently. I mean, I'm always looking for Gwen stuff if something catches my eye. I need to pick up. I've been kind of just letting prices fall on it. I need to pick up her rainbow foil from Unbound on ComC. Thank you very much, Brian. I don't know that it's always sharp, and I don't know that it's always engaging, but it is always content. Comic-Con and the National on the same weekend, same travel cost. Which one are you going to? Probably the National, just because I know more people at the National. Like, if I go to Comic-Con, I'm going to have a good time, but I don't have as many friends in that space. The National is just me hanging out with my friends for a weekend. So I'm going to take the National in that case. That being said, don't sleep on Comic-Con. I had an absolute blast at New York City Comic-Con. It is a completely different vibe. If you have a chance to go to like a mid-tier Comic-Con or larger, I would 100% recommend it. Even if you're not like 100% in the comics or you're just in the pop culture in general, just go check one out. They are a fun vibe. You know, Heroes Con's coming up next month. I'm looking forward to going to that show. That should be fun stuff. But oh, you're in with Steve. Cool. Michael Hamm is locked in to the National. I don't know. Dak might be done this time. He quit once and came back. I think this one's official. We'll see. I think he actually wanted to keep making content, but the problem was that his NBA takes were so bad that Google actually reached out to him and said, "I'm sorry, we gotta stop. You can't do this anymore." And they shut him down. I think YouTube actually shut him down for terrible NBA takes. But what are you gonna do? You know, not everyone can have a ton of knowledge. Outbid Gwen for all the Gwen stuff. Calm down, Charles. Just one quick second here. Sorry about that. I was just replying to a DM really quickly from a fellow content creator. I am looking forward for the National this year. National is going to be fun times. I'm glad that it is back in Chicago again. And then next year, it's in my backyard. We're in Cleveland, buddy. We're in Cleveland, ladies and gentlemen. Cleveland's going to be a weird national. If you're not familiar with the layout, it is not the best for everyone being super close together like Chicago is. Not a lot of great hotels directly around the convention center. I mean, there's some like decent ones, but nothing crazy. But it's going to be, no matter where you stay at Cleveland next year, you are going to have to drive to the convention center, whether it's you driving or taking an Uber or whatever. Luckily, the parking lot there is massive, absolutely massive. So there won't be any issues parking. At least there shouldn't be. But Cleveland National is going to be a different vibe than Chicago. And then we don't know where it's going after that. It is the great unknown after Cleveland. We have Chicago this year, Cleveland the year after, and then we don't know. I hope that it's not back to Atlantic City. I don't think that it will be. But there's been rumors of Nashville, rumors of Orlando. I know Michael Hamm would love himself in Orlando National, probably. It's in his backyard. Yeah, hotel situation sucks in Cleveland. I'm going to be straight with you guys. If you're planning on attending the Cleveland National, research hotels now and book now. I think that's the rumor. They haven't confirmed that yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it's back to Chicago, but I don't believe that that is locked in. I'd actually be okay with an Orlando National. I honestly would, because I would wrap a small Disney trip into it as well and just make it the most expensive week of my life. And, pop into Disney for a couple days while you're on the way down to the National. That would be absolutely amazing. Swing in, ride some Star Wars rides, go to the National. They would get a ton of people going to an Orlando National because you could then, when you could start justifying the National and a family vacation in one, you're gonna bump up your attendance. Hey honey, why don't you take the kids to Disney for a day or two, and I'll go look at cards, and then we'll hook up and do Disney again on the weekend or something crazy like that. Yeah, they probably only book a year out, but like basically when you get back from the Chicago National, I would be looking at Cleveland National hotels if you need one. I will most likely just drive up every day. I probably won't stay up there. It's like a 50-minute drive for me from where I live. I'll just bite the bullet and drive every day. It'll really suck after some late night trade nights, most likely, but I'll save a small fortune on hotel rooms. I don't think the National will ever go to the West Coast. You guys have Burbank. That's your National now. I really don't. The National has an East Coast bias. The other city besides Orlando that I would like to see it in is Nashville. Nashville's the other rumored location outside of Chicago. I would be perfectly fine if it just went to Chicago like every other year and then bounced to somewhere random in between. To this day, and once again, I haven't gone to a lot of the other cities for convention stuff. To me, Chicago is one of the best national cities, just because of where the convention center is in relation to the amount of hotels. Everyone's close together. You can walk and get to everybody else. Atlantic City was a dumpster fire. And not just the city, just the layout. Like it could have been any perfectly nice city. Just everyone being so spread out sucked. I missed out on so much stuff because it was like, oh, you got to hop in a taxi to get from point A to point B. And it just wasn't a lot of fun. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yeah, Orlando makes a ton of sense. And like I said, Nashville would be an absolute blast as well. Just it's a great city. It's a great food city. My wife and I love it there. Then, me and Ham and Flippin' Steve could go get some of the OG Hattie B's hot chicken. We made a hot chicken. Myself, Ham, my wife, and Steve Made a hot chicken run during the Atlanta card show a couple years ago. That was good times. We could go to the OG Hattie B's, get some hot chicken. Yeah, I just don't see it going West Coast. I really don't. Card show on a cruise ship. That's an interesting one. I've never been on a cruise. I've never been on a cruise my entire life. Fuchs, run it, man. Fire it up. Rent out a cruise ship, sell some space. Let's do it. You could be the first. I like the Atlanta card show. I had a really good time. I didn't go this past year, but I went the year before. Atlanta card show was solid. It's not like national level or anything crazy like that, but that was a fun spot to head into. And I really, the convention center is not big enough, but the Charlotte Convention Center is really nice. Having been the Heroes Con there and about to go back in a couple weeks, you could have a really nice card show in the Charlotte Convention Center. It's not big enough for the national, but you could have a nice card show in there. It's a big room. Don't get me wrong. It is a really big room, but it's not national level big. I think that's the biggest problem when the national scouts locations is that they require so much square footage, and there's just not that many places that can handle it. If I had to pick only one sport to collect, what would it be? It would either be baseball or basketball for sure. It definitely would not be football. I'd have to really think about that because I really like a lot. I don't collect like a ton of modern baseball, but I love my like 90s baseball, like my Indians. But I love collecting LeBron and current Cavs players. So that's a tricky one. It would be between basketball and baseball. Yeah, that's the problem. A lot of people don't have the convention space. 100% MPerk. Who's like someone's gonna toss an 86 Fleer Jordan overboard and someone's gonna dive in the ocean for it, and then news at 11. Sports card flipper gets eaten by shark going after PSA 10 Michael Jordan 86 Fleer. Are PSA slabs water resistant? Price your stuff or just know your prices. I would recommend pricing all your inventory. It just makes things so much better. We're sneaking in there. I got plenty of low end stuff to chase for right now, Chris. Don't get me spending a ton of money on high end man ram. I'm diving in. That's funny. Thank you, Ann. What's up, McCards? Let's see. This looks like a juicy topic. What are your thoughts about cracking out PSA slabs to resubmit? Your thoughts on the review service the PSA has? Have you ever known anyone to get a higher grade in the review service? Thank you. The only person that I have ever heard of to even use the review service, because I didn't even realize that this existed for the longest time, is Elite Co 3. Shout out to Nolan. I think he has had grade bumps before, but the percentage is extremely low. I don't think that it happens very often. In most cases, if you think that it was that crazy, I would probably just crack it and resubmit it naturally versus going the review route. I think it's very hard to get a review. Thank you, McCards. Jeff Wilson overboard. Poor Jeff. Maybe if you put the card in the sleeve, it would float, and then it'd be all right. Thanks, Die Cash Cards. It's fun seeing I feel like the silent majority has come out to play tonight. You know, shout out to the silent majority. The people that watch, they just click the video, they watch it, they listen to it. They never click like, they never leave a comment. That's perfectly fine. It's all good. But I'm just seeing a lot of names. I'm seeing a ton of names that I recognize, and I'm seeing a lot of names that I don't typically see or recognize, which is always fun. So shout out to you, silent majority, that just comes, watches, enjoys, or hates, doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything, and just moves on to the next one. This one's for you. This one's for you. My Arnold Palmer iced tea lemonade thing. This one's for you. We watch from the shadows. You're creepers. You're like, what's that? What's the gif where the guy's like peeking out of the bush with the creepy looking face? Toy Star Cards and Collectibles. What's going on, buddy? They're not going to send J-Rod down. That's not going to happen, PK. Ooh, not having graded cards ready to see. Yeah, there's a lot of people that got caught in the PSA backlog. Oh, there you go. There you go, Charles. Charles will help you market that stuff. Charles is a social media all-star. He's got like 10 billion Instagram followers. Pre-code horror is hot right now. I am not an expert in pre-code horror. It's pre-code horror, like the super old golden age stuff. I don't really play in it all. But I know that it is very trendy at the moment. I don't know how prices are going, but kind of like sports cards, a lot of people are flocking to the older stuff right now because of safety, limited pop counts, the whole 9 yards and all that stuff. So cheers to you, LJ Vintage. 3 years of the channel. What has been your favorite buys, both comics and cards? Comics is easy. It's Hulk 181 and Giant Size X-Men 1. I remember being a kid and idolizing those books and being even a man-child and idolizing those books. And those were two things that I never thought I would have the capability to own. So those were big, knocking those off the list and getting those in hand, just kind of looking and seeing and holding that car or that comic, especially the 181. But I'm going to put both those two together. Cards. What has been my favorite card buy? Cards is tricky because I've bought way more cards than comics. I mean, I own a lot of comics, but I bought way more cards. It's probably recency bias, but I'm going to go with the Harrison Ford auto. I chased that card for like a year plus before I finally found one. No, I'm out of Diet Dew. I finished the last little bit for lunch today. I didn't have time to get to the store. So I love him. I love Arnold Palmer. Like the Arizona iced tea Arnold Palmer stuff. I love that stuff in the summer. All the lurkers, cheers. Hey man, it's all good. Shout out to you, Stobbs. Here's the thing. I don't like iced tea. Like straight iced tea. I don't like it. I'm not a tea drinker. But I stumbled into Arnold Palmer and I just freaking love the stuff. I don't drink it much in the winter. It's definitely a summer thing, but thank you, Matthew. Running from the shadows of the night. We don't know yet, Joel. Here's the problem. Dak's take on Ja was always about the talent and the injuries. It wasn't about him being a dum-dum. So I don't know that he gets credit for that one. And listen, Ja could serve a 20 or 30 game suspension, put this stuff behind him, and then go on the ball out. And then we would all forget about this. So people in sports have done way crazier things that Ja has done. And A couple years later, no one really cared. I mean, some people cared, but most people just didn't care anymore. So, who are you hoping to see in the finals? I want to see Denver and Boston. I definitely want to see Denver. Listen, LeBron, I love you, but I can't root for you in a Lakers jersey unless you're playing the Warriors. And I actually would like to see Joker get a ring. I think Joker deserves a ring. 2 MVPs. He's been an absolute menace in the playoffs. I like Denver as like the small market underdog compared to the coastal elites. So, and I've been on Denver since the preseason. Denver was my pick before the season even started, and I've stayed true to them the entire way. And I do see that game started looks very close. I keep glancing down. If you see me glancing down, that's because I have the iPad sitting here with the game going on it. So I can just keep an eye on the score. Generally speaking, Bazooka Tom, I would say that that is correct. Though, and Swaggle and myself talk about this on the video Saturday, it does feel like comics right now, and this was part of the reason why I had him on, and slight spoilers for that video. A lot of comics seem like they are getting potentially on a macro level, it feels like the comic book market may be flirting with the bottom. I know calling a bottom is dangerous and not smart, but the rapid decreases in comic books, at least like Silver, Copper, and Bronze Age, seem to be stabilizing more the last few months than sports cards do. Ooh, AF1. I'd rather have an X-Men one than an AF1, but that's just because I am more of an X-Men fan than a Spider-Man fan. Seven Up Zero Sugar mixed with orange juice. That sounds wild. What is a wild? Or now I got to know, chat. What is some? Does anyone else have a wild? Let's keep this non-alcoholic. Random drink mixture that you bust out. Because this one's pretty wild. I never heard of this one before. I kind of just answered this question in the previous one. And then once again, if you didn't see earlier, I have an hour-long discussion on the comic book market coming out Saturday morning. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Thank you, Make Money Unlimited. Yeah, I don't know that there's many people on Earth right now that can stop the Joker. Maybe Batman. People like a gun flasher better than a PED user. Ja will play again before Zion. Zion will play again before Ja, but then he'll get hurt like 3 more times before Ja comes back. Hey man, I got to root for Boston. I'm staring at a Tatum Green Prism. I about had a heart attack with that card when he was like 1 for 19 in that game against Philly before he went nuclear in the last 4 minutes. Yeah, Jamal Murray seems like a pretty solid deal. So, all right, Jeff Becker asked, we could dive into this for a little bit. For a content creator to do this full time, what's the minimum numbers of subscribers it would take to even consider it? So here's the thing. Subscriber number doesn't matter from a how you get paid department. Views matter more. Now, obviously, a larger subscriber number is better because it's like a built-in base, but most channels you look at, their subscriber number is way higher than their view numbers because not everyone's going to watch every single video. You know, I put out some videos, they get 2,000 views. I put out some videos, they get 9,000 views. It just depends on, you know, how clickbaity your thumbnail is, really, as sad as it sounds. So it's not about the subscribers. It's more, they kind of go hand in hand, but it's really more about the views. And then the dirty secret is you actually make the same, if not more, outside of Google ad revenue. Google ad revenue really doesn't pay you a ton. I mean, it pays decently enough. I mean, I've showed before on spreadsheets. On average, I probably make $30 to $40 per video. That number varies. Sometimes one come in at $15. Sometimes one might come in at, I've had some recently come in at like $60 a video because it got like way more views than normal. So it really depends more on your viewer base, but that's only a slice of the pie. There's that, and then there is also boy, Dustin, you could not have timed this any better as people are asking how to make money on YouTube. There's the YouTube ad revenue part, and then in all honesty, you make just as much money from sponsorships and affiliates and that sort of stuff. So if you're going to do it full time, that is just as important as YouTube ad revenue, because the YouTube ad revenue is not like, making it rain, at least at the view numbers that I'm at. If you're a Pac-Man, different story. If you're Rudy at Alpha Investments and you're pulling in 500,000 views a week, that's an entirely different ball game. So it really just depends. And then the other trick is, and I see back to Dustin, I'll bring it in just a second. I think people don't realize is that none of the money that you make from YouTube is taxed. So you have to set aside a decent chunk of that to pay the tax man at the end of the year. I mean, obviously you can have a bunch of write-offs and stuff, but if you're doing it full time, you have no health insurance. You got to set aside money for taxes. You have to pay. There's just a whole bunch of nonsense. So it's just not as easy as it looks. So what is up?
What's up, man?
Dustin, I'm glad that the check cleared. Speaking of sponsorships, I know you're on a per minute basis with me right now. So
that's right. Clock is ticking. I've clocked in.
Yep. Okay. All right. Do you have anything you want to weigh in on this? I mean, me and you. I mean, you're a slightly bigger channel than me, but like it's to do content full time is not. I think me personally, I think it makes a better side hustle than a full time gig. And I think we're kind of both in the same mindset when it comes to that.
Well, yeah. And actually, I made a video that'll come out tomorrow that talks about this a little bit more and shouts out your 3 years. But I think that you and I are a couple of the weirdos that actually enjoy making a lot of content, like daily content or almost daily content. I think that for most content creators, they don't want to do it that much. Maybe they don't feel like they have enough to talk about. They don't enjoy it. It might just be part of their business to where they feel like they need to tie in social media. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, making a video once a month. I mean, it's all up to what you want to do. But if you are trying to, build kind of a business out of content, it's not to say you have to do it every day, but there is something to consistency. And if it is going to be once a week, then I feel like now with YouTube just becoming so competitive, it has to be highly produced. I almost feel like, highly entertaining. If it's once a week or every other week, and if you're going to get high view counts, the other way you can get high view counts, which is kind of interesting. I learned that. Do you watch Greg the Games? Random. So he's a graded game channel, a good guy, and he goes over kind of all the market data on different graded games. Just kind of interesting stuff, similar to what we do, just on the game side. But I noticed his sub count climbed from like 15,000 to something like 25,000 and change fairly recently. Like over the last 90 days, he's added like 10,000 subscribers, and he did it through shorts. He had basically like, view counts that were just wild on a couple of his shorts. He got like 8 million views on shorts. The thing that's interesting though about it that he was sharing in his video yesterday is that it doesn't carry over to his regular content. So like he's got like all these extra subscribers, but like if you look at his regular, maybe like 15-minute video, like what we would do, he's got like 2,000 views on it. So it's like those, and he almost described it as two different channels. Like he's got like his shorts audience, and then he's got like his medium to long form stuff. And I thought that was really interesting. And of course, it's like, I don't know how that, maybe over time it builds on his longer stuff. Those people do catch on and start watching it, but I just thought that was really intriguing.
So I know that they recently adjusted the algorithm that and it wasn't always like this. This was like a couple months ago, that if someone watches one of your shorts, it is more likely to present one of your long-term videos to that person. That didn't always used to be the case. I can't wrap my head around shorts. I don't know if it's I like the sound of my voice too much, that all my videos tend to run like 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
I just don't know. I post some, but they're usually like meme stuff, not like actual like information. But they're, it's usually like GIFs with like words over them or like, stuff like that. I can't. Same with like Instagram reels. I just don't understand short form content. I think part of it is because I don't watch any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
like I don't see the appeal for it, and I just don't understand how to wrap my mind around it because I don't consume that style of content. I consume 10 to 15 minute YouTube videos, 10 of them a day or whatever it is from various content creators that I watch. So it's hard for me to understand shorts.
I'm the same. Yeah. It's kind of like people that watch stories on IG or reels on IG all day. I just don't do that. I like to dig into, I feel like 30 seconds, you're just getting like a snippet of a topic. I mean, it's just too short form, for me to get into it. But it does seem like people just kind of pass the time with those little, clips, to get through. It's very interesting. My daughter, I don't know if you saw on IG, but I was like, hey, because she's like, I know how to create these. I've got an app for it she's got it on her phone. She doesn't have access to TikTok or any of these things. She's not allowed to share it anywhere. But I gave her a handful of Stranger Things cards, and I was like, can you add like music to this and make a short out of it? I just want to see she's 10. And she made an unbelievable IG reel out of it. I mean, with all these different transitions, she like pops into the screen. She's got like a nosebleed, like she's 11, then it like transitions away and she's somewhere else. I mean, I'm like, and literally she turned it around in about 30 minutes. Like she was like, all right, cool. And it's like, Dad, I'm ready. And I've got a part 2 ready for you. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I don't know. Maybe I probably just have her do all my stuff, to be perfectly honest.
So you're telling me I need to adopt a 10 to 12-year-old to do all my short form social media content.
Well, it's funny too, because I don't know if you get the emails where it's like, your thumbnails are terrible. I'll do amazing thumbnails for you. And these are like 15-year-olds or something. They're like, and they're in like the Ukraine, or wherever, and it's like, but they can put together this like all these graphics and everything. I'm just like, what the heck is going on? But yeah, I'm just too old, I think, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think it comes down to I make the style of content that I want to watch. Because that's just once again, I think that's just your natural inkling is just to run to what you enjoy watching. Yeah, and it's just hard for me to break that. I know, a friend of the channel, Reggie Collects. We were having a discussion about shorts a few months ago, and he's been aggressively going after like he'll do like the 10-minute video and also like a 60-second version of it,
right?
Of like a given topic. And he does a lot of his shorts. I noticed a lot of his shorts are more pop culture news than like actual like comic book stuff. Like he'll do one like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 had an amazing box office opening weekend, yada yada yada. And it's like tangentially the comic books, but it's not.
He's trying to hit a wide audience.
Like leech off of both sides of the audience.
Yeah, he's trying to hit that big viral. Yeah, he's trying to reach that wide audience. But basically, that's kind of how it works. I think with shorts is if you do have a couple that catch fire, then. But that was the thing that was interesting with Greg's video is he added. I mean, well, here's the other thing he said too. He's like, this short had 4 million views, and I added 2.8 thousand subscribers, which is a lot. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of subscribers off of a 40-second clip. But you think about how many, like 4 million equated to 2,500 subs. That's still, like you would assume that if we put out a 15-minute video and it got 4 million views, that we would have a lot more than 2,700 extra subs. I mean, maybe not, but I feel like we would.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think the video that like has the most subscriber count growth for me is either the Marvel card video or the retail hunting video, which both have 30 and 40,000 views. But I think it's still only like a few hundred subscriber growth. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Well, because you can see that on your analytics. I don't know. This is probably a decent idea, is just like use it to showcase off new card pickups. I've done some like IG reels of like my comic showcase in the back. Like at one point in time, I had like all X-Men comic books up when I first got the HasLab Sentinel in, and I just
Yeah,
did like a slow pan,
that's
and
what
then
I do
up
too.
to the Sentinel lit up, and then I just put like the '90s X-Men cartoon theme over it. And it
Right.
actually got like a lot of views. Like it was an IG reel. It got like 5,000 views,
Yeah.
which for Instagram for me is a lot. I don't really do much on Instagram other than post random card pickups. So I don't know. Would you? This is a good question for both of us. I'll throw this one to you first, Dustin. Would you ever consider this doing full time, or do you prefer it as the side hustle?
I kind of like it as a side hustle because I almost feel like if you know, if everything was riding on it, they just put a lot of pressure on. Here's the other thing too that I've noticed is it's not as if I would. So if I was doing it full time, I'd have to be running multiple channels. That's how I would. Because here's the thing: is I've tried doing 3 videos in one day, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that added work means that you get 3 times the views and then you get 3 times the subs, because we would probably be doing, if you and I knew that, if it was just a matter of putting in the time, we'd just crank out another video, or we do it like, because then it's like, okay, this is an easy way to scale. It doesn't really work like that on YouTube,
Mhm. You
so
kind of cannibalize your own views when you post videos close together sometimes.
right. So I would have to have multiple channels. I'd have to have, I have the other channel, Collectibles Dad, where that was one where I keep on trying to get to it and I just never have time for it. But that would be one where I'm kind of talking more about collectibles as a whole and talking about, action figures and comic books and all the stuff. I would have to, if I was going to do it full time, I'd have to have multiple channels, putting out videos on each of them, promoting each, and then, trying to promote each of them through the others, and, building them over 1,000 subs and doing, and then sponsorships and all that. That would be the only way that I feel like I could do it full time, is if I had like 3 channels running with ads and sponsors and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's funny because the video hasn't posted yet, but Swaggle House and I had recorded a comic book market video that's going up on Saturday. And offline, we had a very similar discussion about like, because he's about the same space as us. He's in like that 14, 18,000 subscriber
Oh yeah,
base,
I
similar
like this
amount of
stuff.
views. Yeah, he's great. Mickey's awesome. I talk to him frequently. And we were having the exact same discussion, like, would you ever consider doing this full time? And it's the exact same talking. We both agreed, and it's exactly what you just said. I feel like there would be this like huge level of pressure to, oh God, like I feel like I'd be sweating YouTube analytics like constantly. And then, I mean, you're at the whims of, does Google change the ad rate? Is it a bad
Right.
month for sponsors? Is it a weak month for people buying stuff through an affiliate link? And then all of a sudden you're looking at that and you're like, well, that's got to pay the electric bill. That I don't know if I'd want that sort of, we put out videos daily anyway, but I just feel like that would add like a whole extra layer of stress. I don't think it would be fun anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It
As much as
depends.
this feels like a job some days, because it really basically is, it doesn't have that pressure of a job.
Yeah, the AdSense for this, and we're in a small niche, on YouTube. The ad money just isn't there. It's not very much, for if you're just thinking that you're going to make a living. Now it's all relative too, I guess. How much are you wanting to get out of it? Do you want to make 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month? Like, what do you need to live off of? Because if you're living lean, then maybe, a couple thousand a month is great. I mean, like maybe that
Yeah.
that would do it. So it's all relative to that as well. I mean, but I think that with YouTube, it's just, if you started in 2015, 16, if you got in early and you kind of got built up an audience over, if you were kind of first in, there's a lot of channels. Look at Rudy Alpha Investments is a perfect example of that, to where he started in 16. He's very entertaining. He's got 300,000 subs, 300,000 plus. He's pretty much dominated that niche. And then he's got a business that revolves around that content. So I think that's the other part. Do you have a business that's wrapped around like a Ryan Card Collector too, where
Yeah. Or
he
sports
does
card investor, card
sports card
ladder.
investor? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they make money from their content, but it's not all their. They've got multiple streams of income.
Yeah. I mean, even us, like, it's not just the YouTube ad revenue. There's affiliate revenue. There's sponsorships. There's the whole 9 yards that all helps supplement it. I think the other thing that gives like us specifically an advantage, because we're not doing it full time, is I think it allows us, as much as probably people would like us to be more critical, it does allow us to probably be more, I guess I'll use the word fair in our takes. because we have a vested interest in the hobby doing well, but we don't have to be like 1,000% positive. We could call it as we see it a little bit, because if it goes to zero, would it suck? Yes, but it wouldn't affect me or you putting food on the table, you know, to use an extreme example.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think too, there's content creators, people can see right through a company man, you know, or woman. And that's basically like certain content creators that they're just always pro hobby no matter what. You know, we get into trimming and the take is like, it's a nothing burger. It's just trimming. It's like, actually, it's not a nothing burger. It's kind of a big deal. And yeah, it's something that's been around for a long time. It's not like a brand new topic, but getting kind of fired up about people talking about it when, you know, Evan Mathis makes a how-to video on how to do it. Like, wouldn't you want content creators talking more about it if that happened? I'd feel like it would be bad if there are no content creators that are like, wait, what is that? Well, he made a video about how to trim cards. You know, I mean, like, so I think it's just kind of funny, but people can see through the company man, you know, the company men or women where it's just like, we're staying positive because we don't want to bring down this, you know, this house. And it's like, no, I mean, and the sponsorships that I've got, they just want me to just say what I want and do what I do. They don't say like, be careful, don't talk bad about hobby stuff. You know, I mean, they don't. So I think people just need to be honest about certain things. So anyway.
Yeah. And the other thing too, which I don't know if you're in the same boat, but I've always been very public about this. Like the money that I make from content, I always consider that like my dollar box grinding. Like I don't like doing the microtransaction stuff on eBay and flipping the small cards. So me, air quotes, grinding content is that. If I actually did this for a living, then any money that I made from this would have to go to just paying bills. Whereas now, to be honest, any money that I make from content, I get to just blow on dumb stuff. Like to boil it down to like its real base level, like that pays for me to go to the National. That pays for me to buy cool comics and cards on occasion. Like
exactly. It's the same for me too. And we talked, I know I made videos on it at the beginning of the year. I was dipping into my regular money, you know, to buy cards. I had to reel that in, but yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, this allows me, it's kind of like if we were, you know, I'm not saying that you're not good at flipping or I'm not good at flipping cards, but this is kind of like an extension of that. It's like another, like if you were really good at like buying and selling and flipping cards, I would say that I've had mixed results of that over the last few years. Some have been great, some have been not so great, but yeah, you know, the channel money and the content money or whatever, it's just to supplement the hobby experience. And, you know, some people I think, you know, are not happy about that. You know, I've noticed, you know, they're not necessarily happy about people making money on content, but I don't really see it as any different than, you know, making money buying, selling cards or, you know, making money in the hobby like the majority of people are doing. I mean, yes, there are some people that are simply just buying in and buying in and buying in, but I would say the vast majority are, you know, buying, selling, they're trading, they're, you know, they're having to move stuff around a little bit.
Yeah. We've got a couple different comments here on best times to post YouTube videos. And, you know, Dustin hit on this a little earlier. I don't know that there's necessarily a bad time per se, because I follow a lot of big channels that post at what I would consider to be odd times. You know, like I think Jeff, Sports Card Investor, he puts up a lot of videos like late on Sunday evening, which in my mind doesn't seem like a great time to put a video up, but what the hell do I know? His channel's 50,000 times larger than me. Rudy from Alpha Investments, he just seems to just fire him up. I don't know that there's a rhyme or reason to when his videos post. And he'll do multiples in a day. I think the key is, and Dustin hit on this earlier, is you need YouTube rewards to a degree consistency. So whatever you're going to do, whatever makes sense for you, if it's 2 videos a week, 3 videos a week, I would consistently post those on the same days and same times. Like when I first started, I did like Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I think, before I did daily. And then obviously, you know, I do daily, but all my stuff goes up at 9 a.m. Unless it's like, you know, something happens and then I'll fire a video out. I know you're a little, do you have a set time? I know sometimes your stuff will go live like a little bit before mine because I'll like watch it and then it's like right before my video goes live. Then sometimes you're in the afternoon. I
try to get ahead of your 9 a.m. video. Truth be told, I try to get ahead of it because I know that we have not that
we overlap a lot.
I'm not that I'm taking away audience, but it's just that I know we have some crossover. So, you know, I'll try to go. Well, and here's what happens: I wake up at like 5:30, 6 a.m. I have a topic in mind, usually kind of when I go to bed or I took notes on it like the night before. I make the video at like 6 or 6:15, 6:30, and then I quickly kind of turn it around, edit it, throw in my Nintendo clips, and then at 7:30, 8 o'clock, it's ready to go. Or it might be 8:30 where it actually loads up. But I'm also trying to like feed the kids and the dog and all the, I'm like mixing in all the morning stuff. But that's usually how it works for me. Occasionally, I'll make them the night before. I know you said the same.
I do
thing.
almost all my stuff the night. Usually, I'm recording like right now. Like usually, actually a little earlier than this. Usually, I come home from work, do whatever I need to do. Sometimes I'll try to record before dinner, or if it's something I need to research, I'll do the research and then have dinner, and then record after dinner and do the editing and uploading and all that. I don't get up early enough to record the morning of. I always record everything the night before for the most part. If something happens that crazy in the middle of the night, then so be it. The video will be slightly dated, but usually that hasn't burned me.
But to answer the people I saw a few questions where it was like, what's the best time to post? And I think for you and I've always had the best results starting in the morning and let it run throughout the day, so it hits at 8 or 9 a.m. and it runs. You can have success putting it out at 8 p.m. depending on what the topic is. Like if it's an explosive, newsy type thing, Fanatics buys Panini or whatever, but I usually try to wait. And then also I know you've had the same thing where you have a video that's kind of taken off a little bit. You might want to let it run. You might want to let it run a little bit longer than putting out that next video. So in those cases, I might put a video out at noon or 1.
I have done that before. Yeah. It's like, the video from yesterday is performing way better than it typically is 24 hours later because maybe it was a hot button issue. I'm going to let this ride for a little while and I'll push my video back until 2. Now, YouTube tells you that doesn't matter. I call shenanigans because I'm sure you're the same way. If you look at your live graphics, the second you post a second video close to another one, the first video, it won't die, but it drops considerably is what I usually see.
Yeah, and I wonder too, Dan the Card Man is in the chat and he has some nice view counts too and he doesn't post every day, but I think he posts probably, I'm guessing, Dan, maybe like 2 to 4 times a week. But I wonder sometimes if I just posted 2 to 4 times a week, if I would get more views on the stuff, like if I just let it run a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I've been going daily and you have for so long that we wouldn't really know, because unless you're on vacation or something, you take a week off or whatever. But I mean, I kind of wonder sometimes, like, should I just let this run for 3 days? Kind of like Sports Card Radio. They don't put out, they put out maybe 2-3 videos a week. And then it just kind of runs, sometimes less is more. I don't know, but I always worry that I'm going to lose momentum. That's always been my thing. And
I think for me, it's if I take a couple of days off from recording, am I just going to be like, well, I'll get to it tomorrow, where it's almost like having the repetition is almost important for me to consistently do it. Like I don't want to say force myself, but I worry that if I all of a sudden let it slide, then it'll just be like a slippery slope. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
Someone asked about monetization on lives. Not great. Like the ad revenue from an air quotes live will be usually extremely low. I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast because this is really in the weeds. The way YouTube posts live to your channel after they end is weird. And it doesn't always insert mid-roll ads correctly, or it puts like 5,000 of them in there and you got to go in and clean it up. It's like a whole weird thing. But generally speaking, like I think the last live that I did last week, I got like $10 in YouTube ad revenue off of. I don't remember. Lives are typically crap for a 10-minute video will 100% of the time outperform from a YouTube revenue sense a live stream almost always. Unless you get like a bunch of super chats or something crazy, but that doesn't usually happen.
I think it depends too. I'm just thinking about some of the other big channels that have grown that have had more viral stuff. And I think about like what's one, like CoffeeZilla would be an example of like, he's like an investigative reporter that goes after like, financial people and, shady folks or whatever, but he doesn't post, he probably posts like every 2 or 3 weeks, but it's like a 30 or 40 minute, highly produced video, very, very detailed. So I almost feel like if you're going to post every 2 or 3 weeks, you can pull it off like that, but you've got to have all the things working. You've got to have really nice transitions, really highly produced, really good like storytelling. It's got to all be working if you're going to grow like that. But you can. That's the thing. I mean, I think for me and for Rob, I mean, for me, I just don't have time to put together really in-depth stuff unless I was going to post once a week, which I guess I could do. I could do something like that where I just took way more time on one video. But, like what you were saying, I think it's more of a momentum thing. And I just honestly, like, if I was going once a week, I'd feel like there's already 3 other topics I want to talk about. It's like you make that video and you're like, damn, I missed like these other few stories I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So. And then you're making a 45-minute long video, which generally perform like crap compared to most stuff. And then the other thing too is like, I'm sure you're the same way. You'll get comments or DMs. You're like, hey, did you not see this? Like, why don't I have a video on this yet? Like, what's your thoughts on this? Which I guess is it's great that people have like want your take on something. Like, that's insane that someone's like, no, I need to know what you think about this. Why haven't you told me yet? Like in a video format.
Yeah, it's humbling for sure, because we're just like regular goofballs, like
100%. Hang out with us at the National. We are definitely just some goofballs. What do you think about content creators making videos about what cards to invest in? I honestly didn't. I mean, I know that it's still a thing. I don't watch anyone that makes that style of content, and like guilty as charged. I don't think I've ever deleted a video. You can go back. I have 100% back in the early days made a video that was like, these are the top 5 things that are undervalued or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guarantee I could 100% make and record that video tomorrow, and it would probably perform through the roof if I did. Yeah. I know that it would. I have done some comic book stuff that flirts with that, but and once again, Swaggle's in the chat right now. We actually talked about this off camera on the video we did the other day. I see more of that still on the comic book side than I do on the card side. At least for the content that I'm consuming.
My sports card, like my cards dropping videos, I pulled that. If Swaggle's listening, I pulled that. I mean, that's not a new thing. That's I was doing similar videos to that going back a couple of years, but I was like, how could I kind of bring that back? And I noticed that Comic Book Investments YouTube channel is just killing it. He's killing it with like these like, minus 60%. Basically, he's just showing data on drops. He's showing data on 5 key comics dropped 50%. And he's got 5,000 views on it. I'm like, that's interesting. And these are videos. I was making similar type videos to this going back a couple of years, but kind of got away from it. And then I was like, why don't I bring some of the stuff back? So, and it's done pretty well. A lot of the fun of YouTube is watching what other people do to just the way that they put, videos together, the way that they, kind of how they format everything, and does it work or not work? That's also kind of a big fun kind of challenge of YouTube, is nobody knows how the algorithm actually works. Like nobody's really nailed it down. So it's just this giant, mystery. It's like a labyrinth.
Yeah. Israel here says, have you noticed anything specific that leads to subscriber growth, views, watch time, engagement, but anything specific for subscribers, or just reminding people and being consistent? I think it's just really putting out quality content that people engage with. I haven't said like, comment, and subscribe in a video in probably 8 or 9 months. And nothing really changed that I noticed. Now, I do notice, because I did say it, and it was almost kind of a social experiment. A weekly sports card market update video like a week and a half ago, I said, I'm creeping up on 3 years. I'm like flirting with 14K. I'd like to get there. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And I did get a larger subscriber bump than normal, but I have not said like, comment, and subscribe in a video in months. Because frankly, I just got kind of sick of saying it. It just feels cliche. It just feels kind of obvious. I don't know. If people want to like, comment, and subscribe, do it. I'm at the point now where it's like, whatever, hit it if you want to.
Another way to do it is giveaways. I've noticed that the channels that do consistent giveaways, I'll throw one guy out there, and I like Jay at Mojo, but Mojo he's a giveaway machine. Jeff Wilson's done
tons of engagement.
And Jeff Wilson has done this with his virtual, where, he's breaking all these boxes and then he's giving the cards away. But part of that, of following those giveaways, is there's so many giveaways that you almost feel like you should subscribe. Like you almost like have to subscribe. And sometimes part of the giveaway is you have to subscribe. So it's like, they ask like, hey, we're doing these giveaways, please subscribe. And so I think that's another way that you can do it. I've never really done, I've done a couple of giveaways in the past, and then I didn't never really had, I didn't really feel great about it, honestly. And then also I got people that push back, like, how did you pick the giveaway winner and this? And I was just like, God, this is too much of a pain. Like, I don't want to deal with like, did I choose my buddy for a giveaway? You know, I mean, and I also don't want people to sub just because I might give away something. Like, that just seems kind of empty. I don't know.
Yeah, I said, because I remember I would get comments early on when I was still like 1,000 subscribers, 2,000 subscribers, or whatever, and people would be like, "How come you never run giveaways?" And my comment back to that was, "I want you to watch and subscribe and comment because you enjoy the content, not because I'm giving you like I want to grow a genuine audience, not I don't want you here just for the free stuff, you know." Yeah, and I have done a couple giveaways in the past for sure, but
and I had people too that reached out. It was weird. I've had people reach out to where I would get like a whole long story. And this is multiple times where it was like, I've been going through all this or that and going through all this. I really would like to win. I'd really like to win. And then as soon as the giveaway is over, I never hear from these people again. Like, it was like, that was the engagement was simply, you know, for that giveaway. Now, for YouTube doesn't care where the engagement comes from, and maybe the content creator doesn't care where the engagement comes from. So that, you know, the giveaways, you know, like some people are just like, I don't care. I just want people to come. But yeah, it just never really stuck with me. I'm definitely agree with you on just, I want people to watch because they want to.
Yeah. Shout out to Brad in the chat. He runs the Ship Shawana show. I'll maybe be seeing you in about a week or so, Brad. Dan and Swaggle both agree in chat. The second video always kills the first video. Yeah. So that's four of us that all produce fairly regular content that see the same exact thing. So Google could go jump on a lake with what their algorithm says.
The other thing is you and I don't probably do enough evergreen content. You know, we do a lot of news stuff.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, unless you're but it's probably a good idea to mix that in if you're someone that's thinking about doing this or whatever. I mean, because you do have to crack a lot of the, you know, Sports Card Investor owns a lot of that, those evergreen topics. But if you can kind of break into those, the algorithm catches, you make a really good how-to sports card, whatever video, you know, it can do well. That's the stuff that's going to, like, someone will find it in 5 years, as opposed to like, you know, Panini sucks part 1, you know, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, I talked about it early on, like that, like how to find retail product, like cracking the code on how to find retail, or in the early pandemic days, like that video got like 35,000 views because of what you're talking about. It was like a hot button issue. It was evergreen. It hardly gets any views now, but it got views consistently for multiple years, or at least a year or two, which I'm sure your content's the same way. That doesn't happen typically for 99% of the stuff that we're posting. Some of my Marvel box breaks actually perform. I mean, they're not getting like thousands of views a month, but they'll consistently get like a couple hundred views a month, which is better than most of the stuff that we post. We're both, I mean, like Jeff nailed it. We're newsjacking essentially in that video he did a couple weeks ago. Like, we are riding the wave of, we have the ability to be quick and consistent in getting videos up. And then you could kind of tally off whatever or ride the wave of like whatever the hot button thing is at the moment. You get rewarded for that. You get rewarded. You get the short-term dopamine hit. But to your point, you don't get that. Someone's going to discover you completely organically 5 years from now, searching for how to submit the ComC or something like that.
One thing I did notice, well, first off too, I've done more of the reaction videos since January, just because I think it's kind of fun, and they're not always, it's not like it's all negative. There's a lot of positive reaction videos in there too. I reacted to one of yours, you know, and it was a positive reaction. But It's Jeff Wilson show, I react to that every week now. That's not a weekly show for me because it gets engagement. People are going to watch it. But the one thing I saw that was interesting is I made a video going back like 6 months ago, like, where's Gary V, you know, in sports cards, like, where is he? And I'll still get a bunch of comments on that video. Like, that video still actually performs. It's being found in search. And so then I was thinking like, maybe I should kind of wrap in like who's being searched. You know, Jeff Wilson's being searched, you know, so that's part of why I think that, and full disclosure, I message back and forth with Jeff. So like, he's seen the show, we message about it. It's not like some, notorious thing, you know, he'll message me and say like that. He actually, I was talking in that last video about entrepreneur. He says entrepreneur, and I have that like a clip. And then he sent me a link of like how to say entrepreneur. You know, like, yes. So it's like we go back and forth, but that's part of the fun. You know, I mean, like there's, you know, I mean, so I think people take it very seriously, you know, like it's a big beef or something, you know, but it's just fun.
Yeah. Swags, if you want to hop on, I did send you an invite. I know that usually this time you're usually doing dinner and stuff, but if you want to pop in, feel free. I know that we just talked for like 2 hours, like literally yesterday or the day before, but if you want to pop on, feel free. It's in your Instagram DMs. Yeah, and this to Dustin's point, you know, this like best places to buy sports cards, how to submit the PSA. There's so many videos at the top of that search result that just have like 150,000, 200,000 views. If you're just the average Joe looking this how to submit the PSA, you're just gonna click on the one that has the most views. Like,
well,
it's just human nature.
Right above this, Chris C says, "What do you mean he owns a topic? That sounds ridiculous." What I mean by that, Chris, is if you think of YouTube similar to Google, like page one of Google, because it's the same thing, really. I mean, if you think about those search engines are all tied together. And so what I mean by that is Sports Card Investor, they've got the Sports Card Investor website. They've got, you know, they've got the YouTube channel. They've got the podcast. He's got the digital background, all the digital things working. He's done a lot of these evergreen videos. It's not to say you can't break into those topics. And there's also other channels that own those topics as well, but they just made very good videos over time that have performed well over time. So you're up against, you know, some of those like page one Google, you know, it's kind of like in finance, you're up against like Bloomberg with your news. You know, it's like you have to think of it like that in those terms. It's not exactly the same. It's similar though. That's
I would 100% agree with that. That's, you know, it is tricky to kind of crack through the ceiling, because usually what happens, what I notice is if I made a video, let's just keep using the how to submit the PSA topic because it's an easy one. It's going to throw it towards the top, but it's not going to stay up there. So like for the first couple days, it might be like the third video in the search results.
Yep.
And then unless people really engage with it, it's probably going to start sliding down because it's like the PSA collector one. And then there's another one that's up there that have like hundreds of thousands of views, are always the top two. So you could slide into that third slot for a hot minute, but you won't hold it. And then you slowly start to slide down that list. And to Dustin's point, when you search how to submit the PSA, how many of those videos do you really need to watch? You're probably only going to click on the first couple, probably the only one, probably the first one. It's going to walk you through it, and then you don't need to look at any of those videos anymore. So there's no reason to drop down to the 10th one on the list to figure out how to submit the PSA.
But at the same time, it's kind of like with shorts, to where, like, you know, if you don't like, the shorts can go viral where it gets 2 million views, or it could get 200 views. And you're like, I don't know, I made a great short. If you don't make those how to do sports card videos, you'll never have a chance to get on page one of Google. So it's just all about just finding what you want to make content on and which topics do you want to try to break into, what's being searched for. Like your Marvel cards video is actually a really good example of this, where you hit it just right, where you made that video when search was high for Marvel cards, where if you go back 6 months, there's probably no one searching for Marvel cards the same way. And then all of a sudden they were, and your video was right there. It was like a perfectly timed thing, you know, and it worked out.
That was 100% right place, right time, and happened to have the right piece of random knowledge base all at the right time. And it also helped that I was already established at that time. Like I was well monetized at that time. Like I had a few thousand, I probably had like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers. Like I was getting, you know, thousands of views on a video when that came out. So that helped. That always helps juice it. I don't care what YouTube says. I think it is harder to crack through and go viral as a smaller channel. They say it's not, but whatever. But yeah, just happen to have the information, happen to know like the sports card side of things, understanding grading, and having intimate knowledge with that particular set was like a perfect storm. And then to your point, it stayed in the zeitgeist for multiple months. So everyone was searching for it. And then that was the top of that. You put Marvel cards in, that was the video that you saw at the top of the search results for months, for at least a couple months. So
yeah, I got to hop off, buddy. I got to get back
on the next one. Oh, I didn't want to, I know that you're on a run, but Bazooka Tom says he enjoys the impromptu barbs that we throw at each other. It's always with love. Dustin and I talk multiple times a day, multiple times a day typically. So, but we do enjoy our little
Yeah, we'll
jabs
have
and
to have you back
each
on
other
with
on occasion.
Steve for Off Centered. We'll have to have you back on the next one, or at least coming up soon. We got the national coming up to
We want
talk
to do a
about.
pre-national one
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
before Steve makes us walk 27 blocks for a slice of pizza.
That's right.
All right, later,
man.
buddy.
Congrats on 3 years.
Thanks.
All right. See ya.
Shout out to Dustin popping on for a little bit to chit chat. Was not expecting to go like YouTube content creation analytics deep dive there. I wasn't planning on a how to YouTube TED talk, but I know a lot of people actually do find that stuff kind of interesting, even if you aren't making content, or if you have a smaller channel, or just always kind of curious about. It's kind of like this mythical beast of like the behind the scenes YouTuber lifestyle. How does it all work stuff? So, but I always enjoy talking about it. I think it is an interesting topic to kind of banter back and forth with, especially with a fellow content creator. I know content creators love talking about it because anytime, once again, Swaggle and I were just talking about like this in the weeds content creation stuff, because you're kind of alone in your own little bubble. And then you have a chance to talk with another content creator that's like on the same level, slightly larger, slightly smaller than you. And you kind of get into the weeds on stuff and like realize that you kind of have all the same struggles, problems, see the same things, maybe see something differently. All that stuff's always kind of interesting for me anyway. I have no idea. I ran out. My iced tea ran out. I have no idea how long this bottle of water has been sitting on my desk, but it's all that I got, and the show must go on. So, thanks for being willing to share. Oh, no problem. I've always been about as transparent as I can be when it comes to YouTube behind the scenes nonsense. So if anyone ever has questions, feel free to, ask in the chat or DM or whatever. If you're a newer channel and you have questions, I've had some people DM me in the past that like just started channels and had like, random questions about stuff. So don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask those things. Shout out to Shag Sports Cards, one of my local card shops, doing correct me if I'm wrong, Shag, trade nights June 10th, right? In North Canton, Ohio. Yeah, it was capped the whole time. I should be safe. We'll see. We'll find out. But yeah, Shags has a shop in North Canton, Ohio. I get some Pokemon stuff from him every once in a while. But he is having his first trade night June 10th. Yep, he says that is correct. So do a little Google search on that one. It's right, basically right next to downtown North Canton. But if you are in the Northeast Ohio area, same day as the Hartville show, I believe. So yeah, Marvel 90 was a lot of people's gateway. Ah, those are great. I know it when you're talking. I think mine are sitting right here. I don't know where. Is it right here? Please hold. This one. Talk about this one. The holograph. Love this card. Looks so good. I assume that's what one you're talking about. Always interesting to get a peek behind the curtain. Ah, no problem, Shaq. I look forward to the trade night. Yeah, it's absolutely great. Yeah, I've been to CC2 shop. I don't know, at least a dozen times probably. I mean, probably more than that. I've gone to, I'd probably say at least half his trade nights. I would say. Yeah, probably at least half his trade nights at the shop. I missed the last one. But I usually try to go at least a couple times a year, as often as possible, to trade nights. And then I've stopped in the shop. I'm down that way on occasion. I'll pop in real quick, like usually if I need supplies or something. But if I'm in the general area, I usually try to pop in real quick. But it's typically a trade night that what gets me down. It's about 2 hours for me to get to Ryan's shop. So grading reveal videos do perform typically pretty decently. Some of my more consistently viewed videos are PSA specifically reveal videos. Those always do well. Same with submission videos. Team no look. I can't do it. I can't do it. What chat are we team no look or team look? I have to look. I'm refreshing. Listen, I just sent that bulk order like a week ago. I know there's no chance it's remotely close to being done. And I have refreshed that page no less than 3 times a day. And it just went in grading the other day. So it's not like it's even close to being done. I don't even care. I've checked. I just checked again. I literally tabbed over to it and refreshed the page to see. And guess what? Shocking. It's still in grading. Who would have guessed? A lot of team no looks. Wow. I don't like vlog style stuff. Not my bag of cats. Not my bag. So one, I'm just not good at it. The vlog style content has gotten so good because most of the people that do it really well have a camera person. I typically do not. At the national, like my wife will come with me sometimes, but she's not usually on the show floor with me. Comic-Con, she would probably be more willing to do it. But that stuff is so well produced now. And I have done a couple. If you look back on the history, I did a couple at some Hartville shows way back in the day. It is a bear. If I had Ryan from Breakout Cards on, I know that, he spends a ton of time on this. That stuff is a bear to edit, an absolute bear to edit. It takes a ton of time. And it's just not for me. No shine against or no hate against anyone that's doing it. I enjoy watching some of that stuff. It's a pain to record. It's a pain to edit. It takes a boatload of time. It took me the couple times I did it, and it's probably because I'm not used to doing it, so I don't have the experience doing it, so I'm not fast. It took me like a day to edit one 15-minute. That was just a local show card vlog. And it wasn't even like that crazy because it's not like it's easy to get me doing deals when I'm by myself with just a camera in my hand. It was just mostly the camera pointing at cards, picking up the audio of the conversations that I was having around me. And I do have a lot of interesting conversations at card shows. It would be nice to capture that. It's just so tricky. The sound editing is bad, and I hate editing sound. It's hard to clean up the background audio sometimes. Just a lot of nonsense with it. So I'll just let other people do it. I would rather just do like the like kind of like what I do for the national, where I have all my equipment, I record in the hotel room, but I just do more like a podcast style, like here's the day 1 recap, here's the day 2 recap versus a show vlog. So, if I had a whole team doing editing and all this stuff, maybe, but just not my thing. I have played with this feature on older orders. I'm excited to use it on this new order. So if you don't know what Bazooka Tom's talking about here, there's a new feature on the PSA app that when you pull up your order, it shows the back of your card after it's graded, and you physically like touch the screen and flip it to see the front of the card. It's kind of cool. Oh, nice. I don't have a love affair for cars. Cars have never been my thing. Team no look. A lot of team no looks. You guys are crazy. Hey, what's up, Michael Stone? Team no look too. Yeah, exactly, Matt. Tell them. You monsters. How do you do it? I can't even wrap my head around it. I really don't. I've been seeing people get back stuff pretty quickly. If it's ultra modern, vintage stuff takes forever. I agree, Swaggle. You're so focused on the content and not the show. It kind of almost ruins the experience of the show. And like once again, maybe I'd feel different if I had a camera person, so then I could just kind of like do my thing, and then it's on the camera person to catch what's going on, but it would still be in the back of my head. I don't know. Yeah, and there are people that can edit that stuff out. I don't have that talent or skill. I am not familiar with that. What do they do? Like, what's their niche? Like, what do they talk about? I'm not familiar with that channel. DeAndre Prism rookies were going for 75 on Star Stock. Oh man. I should do a video one day just going back looking at Star Stock sell history, buy sell history on how much cards were going for. How much Star Stock Prism A base rookies were selling for at the peak of the market is wild stuff. Wild stuff. Cleveland stuff, Shag. You know, Brown stuff, Indian stuff. I talked about this. I was on a basketball card nerd for an interview. I think he posted it earlier today, I believe. So go check that out if you want like a long form. And I kind of talk about in there like my history of collecting. I have always been into collecting stuff, but I am schizophrenic and bounce around a lot. So when I was a kid, I started off with sports cards. And then it went from sports cards to comic books and Marvel cards. And then it went from comic books and Marvel cards to Magic the Gathering. Then it went back to sports cards. Then it went back to Magic the Gathering. Then it went to kind of nothing for a while. Actually, I know what it went to. It went to college and my wife and women. And then it went back to cards and comics and Magic and now everything, which is not advisable by any rate. And we have another special guest in the background that I will bring on in just a minute. If you give me a thumbs up to tell me that you were good to go. Back, okay, you're good to go. We'll bring you on in just a second. Team No Look, like Christmas morning, 100%. It's always been, I do have, so outside of like true collectibles, I have a very large tabletop board game, air quotes, collection. I mean, I open up and play them. They're not sealed. But I have a very large tabletop board. I have a whole room full of tabletop board games that don't see the table hardly at all because I just don't have time. And then I have a small collection of Star Wars Black Series action figures. So we get caught up on chat real quick here, and then we'll bring in the guests. Yeah, I have my eyes on that one, Toy Story. All right, we have another guest. First, I think, first time on the channel. We talk a ton. We hang out at shows a lot. We've been guests on, I think, other people's live streams. We've been in the recesses of the dark secret places of the hobby together a lot. None other than Ryan. For those that don't know, Gemrate is an actual living, breathing human being. What's up, Ryan?
Happening? What's happening? Congrats, man. 3 years. It's awesome.
Yeah. How's it going, buddy?
Good. You triggered me with Team No Look. I'm definitely Team Look. And then
yeah, I don't understand these No Look people.
Yeah, that's like storing wax. I can't do that either, though. So
I do that, but I have moments of weakness every once in a while. I purposely keep some like low-level retail on hand. So if I get like a trigger finger, it's like, all right, I'll grab the $30 blaster and not the $300 hobby box.
And then I was hearing the Star Stock stuff, which I love Star Stock. It was my favorite. I was all about it. When I was actually debating whether or not to move forward with Gemrate, I was thinking maybe I would build tools for Star Stock, and a buddy of mine pushed me towards Gemrate, but I wasn't sure. I love Star Stock. I almost built like a whole ecosystem of stuff around it. So Gemrate turned out to be the right direction, but I mean, I was
the right call there.
Yeah, I love
Star Stock is like the one company that should have worked, and they just didn't. I mean, really, it's ComC, but there was something different. It was just ComC with a shinier finish, really, in its base level. But it just felt different. I don't know if because I think what it was because the supplies were constrained because there just wasn't a lot of cards on the platform yet. So it felt like there was this race to get stuff when in reality the stuff really wasn't that rare, but it was like artificially constrained because you were stuck inside the platform. I don't know, but the peak Star Stock days were some of my funnest days in the hobby of just like, oh God, some third string bench player starting tonight. Let me go buy his Prism A's of, random OKC Thunder front court guy. And they would go from 50 cents to like $5 in like the matter of 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, and it was beautiful too because ComC was basically down at the time in the sense that they weren't taking and processing any orders. You know, they had a massive backlog of their own, and so it was like the only game in town for that too. And it was definitely the A's, the pre-grade was really helpful, and yeah, it was just the limited inventory made it great. You know, there was definitely not as much dilution.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm a bad example of this because I never really sent them cards. So it wasn't like I was like deeply invested in the star stock that when it tanked, it wasn't like the end of the world. Like I notoriously pulled most of my money in cards off that I wanted off there way ahead of everyone because I just had a vibe that it was going south and made a video about it. But you know, like I made like a $50 deposit and then just kind of like spun it from there. It wasn't like I was like heavily invested that I was like, here, vault all these things for me back in the day.
Yeah, I got when I came back in, I was pretty into breaking, and so I just unloaded tons of cards. I still have 1,200 cards at Star Stock that, you know, someday I may try to get them back, but it was a great outlet.
You're not getting charged the vaulting fee, are you?
Oh, I don't think so. I have like no money in that account, so
okay. If you had money in your account, they were charging you a vaulting fee. They rolled that out like 6 months ago.
It's not the most transparent these days, so I'll have to check.
Yeah, they sent an email about it. I did a video on it, but I think a lot of people missed it for sure. So what's you know, once again, we talk often and frequently and hang out at shows and stuff. So, but I feel like anyone watching this video knows who you are and what you do. But just kind of like when you, and I know this, but the audience might not, like when you first started doing this and kind of got traction and rolling, how did the grading companies feel about you? Were they like, cool, look at this guy doing free marketing? Or were they like, I don't know about this?
Oh yeah, no, there was a lot of question marks. I mean, you know, these were pretty closed off entities for a long time. You know, Beckett has their price guide, and you know they sell a lot of data, right? PSA was just transitioning. You know, they're a public company, and so there was a little bit of like people that were scraping their data back then, but not much, if at all. You know, and I was really focused on PSA because of the backlog initially, and so you know they definitely knew what I was doing. They definitely were like, we see. And so, you know, I think they were okay, but they were definitely like cautiously like watching what I was doing and a little skeptical, you know, but I made it pretty clear. Like I'm not trying to displace the pop report. I'm trying to add to it. Just trying to bring like more information to market so people are more confident, you know, when they're making buying and selling decisions and like better at just building the narratives around the cards that they own or the cards that they'd like to buy. So, you know, it definitely took time, but they were definitely, you know, worried just in the sense of like they didn't know what I was going to do and nobody had tried to do it before. As far as like just kind of, you know, in a lot of ways, I'm front running their information. You know, they weren't public about it at the time. Nobody had really been public with it as a grading company, and so I think there was just probably a lot of like discomfort. But I talk to all the grading companies now, but I mean, it was definitely like for the first year and a half, I was sort of like. Not to mention, there's just a lot of bad actors. There was a lot of people that would abuse the websites. And so I would sort of be at the mercy of it. They couldn't tell if I was sort of the person causing noise on their sites. You know, there was a lot of people trying to acquire data for a lot of different reasons. And so, you know, there's just, it was very busy. A lot of people were building tooling too, in addition to what I was doing, you know, whether it was, you know, collection management or other tools in the space. And they have a lot of the same tactics and approaches. And so, yeah, it was, you know, and I'm actually working on stuff now to sort of like advance what I had built back then, just in the sense of like, you know, every morning is a little bit of a crapshoot of just like, hey, is somebody upset with what I'm doing and trying to just make things a little bit more difficult, which is totally possible. You know, they can definitely like throw some hurdles in my face or in my way, but I'm on good terms with all of them these days. I think they understand the big picture of, you know, the hobby benefits from having better information and more transparency to a degree. And this is one of those resources that people seem to enjoy, and it's not really a threat to anything they're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the companies don't like the monthly numbers, and I know another fun conversation. We won't get into specifics, but like the companies that now, like you went from like people like the grading companies side eyeing you to now, I am sure there's probably grading companies that are like, hey, what would it take for us to get on the list? You know what I mean? Like. Some of the smaller ones, I'm sure, would love like the free marketing of it, even if the number wasn't huge compared to the other ones. But I'm glad that you stuck with the big four because I'm definitely a proponent of don't grade with pop-up grading companies.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've graded with all of them. You know, I have Beckett cards in front of me right now. I've graded with PSA. I've graded with SGC, CSG, HGA. You know, I have Tag Slab. I have, you know, I try them all, and I try to be pretty unbiased with this whole process. But you know, I let the people sort of decide. And so if you have a pop report and enough people ask me about it, and I see that there's enough transaction volume, you know, then it seems like it's worth my time and effort. You know, it's a lot of maintenance to bring a new grading company into the mix as it relates to like this data set. But the big four were like, I was always planning to sort of add these main companies, and sort of that was the value add, was not just speaking to PSA alone, because I wanted people to understand sort of like the broader trends. It was just, I focused on PSA initially because that's where all the question marks were and people didn't really understand the backlog. But yeah, the big four is definitely my main focus. And if somebody emerges, I'll be happy to add them at, you know, when the time comes. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I try to just keep it pretty, you know, a pretty strong signal and not really distract with, you know, sort of companies that, you know, whatever, still trying to establish themselves. And I respect them. I respect it. I think this is a hobby that tends to sort of, you know, throw a lot of shade or sort of be pretty skeptical of innovation and new companies. And I'd rather be sort of more of the cautiously optimistic person that maybe they will persevere or sort of break through. And so I'd love to, if we get to a point where more companies are in the mix, but you know, it's just really hard to break through. And there's just such a bias towards the slabs that people have in hand. It's really hard to cut through, because a lot of times that means it's coming at the expense of things that they already own.
Yeah. And I think what you do, like, obviously from a content creation standpoint, it makes great content. It really does. But like, your information is a valuable, like, I guess for lack of a better term, like, keep them honest almost. You know what I mean? And I'll use a specific example, and I've talked about this in videos publicly plenty of times. When the Beckett grading scale thing came out, and like we were chatting like as it was kind of happening in real time, and we were kind of like I'm asking you the questions and you're kind of like predicting what I'm going to ask you about, like, wait, how many cards is this going to affect? Wait, what does the pop report look like for this? Oh wait, what does it look like for this version of their subgrades? And then like you're throwing the numbers together real time, and we're both like, that's a lot, you know. And then, you know, I did the video on it, and those numbers kind of went like slightly viral. Everyone kind of picked up on the whatever it was, 85% or 80% or whatever it was. But like, without your data, we would never know that, really. I mean, it's technically sitting there on the BGS pop report page, but like, no one has in a clean database to pull from like you do. So we have that advantage to keep them honest. And another example, which I have not recorded the video on this yet, but you know, I asked you questions on it. I just need to sit down and record it. SGC gold labels have like disappeared. You know, and I asked Ryan, I was like, hey, how many did they grade last year? And I think it was like 300 and some SGC gold labels were added to the pop report last year. And this year is like what, 10, 8, 12, something like that.
8. Yeah, it was 8 as of, you know, last week.
So I've done more research. I need to sit down and just record that video. But that's like a same thing. Like, sure, that information is publicly available, but it's not easily trackable. Totally. So just like what you do, I think is like a very nice, like, third party safety net, you know, that we could kind of use your data to like reference and kind of keep them in check and make sure that what they are telling us is accurate. You know, like PSA, they do like, I think they do what, like a monthly thing now where they're like, here's how many cards we graded. And it might not always be exact to yours, but it's like close enough that we're like, okay, like, you know, they're within 5%. And I know that like the way you pull your numbers is a little bit different compared to like what they grade in a month. There's like some weird like 1 day shifts here and there and all that. But generally speaking, it's like within the margin of error. So it's like, oh, okay, they're not just feeding us a BS number. Like, it matches up with what GemRate's pulling as well.
Yeah, and PSA, I mean, they've even, you know, they've actually stopped publishing a lot of that, and they publicly have said that the GemRate numbers are pretty much spot on. You know, it can vary from a day-to-day basis just because of when they ship versus when things hit the pop report, but you know, it's pretty close. And I feel most confident about their numbers because they also have sort of just I don't want to say it's the best pop report, but it's the most consistent pop report for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And to your point, I mean, I think you ask great questions, and that's why you know, one of the things I love is just sort of like, I have so much data that I don't even get into because I don't have time to sort of just like, I don't have content channel really. I have Instagram and Twitter. And so I'm not really actively sort of, you know, just stewing on ideas to sort of, you know, create a video. You know, if somebody asks me, I usually have it. I just don't have time to sort of come up with it on my own. And so you ask great questions, but yeah, there's so much data. I mean, that Beckett data I'd been collecting for over a year, and I hadn't published anything related to sort of like the subgrades and all that stuff. And then it came up, and it just happened to be super timely, and we were able to get some stuff out in the market to help people understand like what are the impacts of these grading scale changes that they were proposing. And it was pretty massive, right? And it's to some degree, they probably overlooked some of that in the process of them trying to move a little bit fast. And so, yeah, that, and then you have like black label questions I get all the time, or sort of SGC questions related to the pristines and things like that. And it's still very untapped. I think of it as sort of like the Elias Sports Bureau of like, you can get real granular and ask some very specific questions of this data set that I've built. And I'd like to layer on like more real world information onto it in time. For example, like, give me all Hall of Fame rookie cards of players that hit 500 or more home runs and have, a total population of less than 500 cards. And like, you could just do that pretty quickly and like see, or whatever, just ask like things that are sort of intuitively like interesting investments, but actually get data back out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, your content pile is a gold mine, or your data pile is a gold mine for content creation. You just got to kind of know like what, and I don't even know what the questions are to ask half the time. It's just like I'll get like an idea stuck in my head, and then I'll ping you, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I have the numbers on that. Here's da 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 da, and you'll spit them back out to me. I think the Beckett example is like the perfect example of how your data can help keep them in check a little bit. Keep them honest, I'll say. Yeah. We got a couple. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just say, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that's sort of like principles that I've had is that the data has to be public for me to use it. If nobody can send me a data feed, like I've been offered data feeds that are, private or sort of, behind the scenes. And I don't want anything that I can't validate or sort of, verify that the public is also seeing and can sort of, speak to. And so the pop report is the best way to do that, which is problematic in a situation right now, for example, with like CSG, when their pop report's unavailable, but that is what it is. But yeah, it definitely helps with accountability. And I think it, hopefully it's sort of, the pop reports are hard, as I was saying, and like, hopefully it keeps pop reports in like great shape too, as a result of it, because it sort of puts the burden on them to just make sure things are accurate and that they're timely with updates and things like that.
Speaking of CSG pop report, Michael asks, who's one of my sets up at the local shows and is a big fan of CSG. Have you heard anything on where they're at with that? I know I have asked, and they said that they're still working on it. I actually just recently asked about a week ago. Yeah,
I talked to Andy briefly at Mint, and just said, hey, because they made one update, and I was like, oh boy, and I was at Mint, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is really gonna like disrupt my Mint experience, because I was gonna be dealing with just sort of like whatever changes they make. And little
did you know Beckett would be the thing to disrupt your experience.
I know. Well, fortunately, they didn't at least like roll out a massive pop report change, and it was just questions related to the data. But with CSG, I mean, I know they're close, but they're these pop reports are a mess. It's just because the grading companies don't distribute it. Because the manufacturers don't distribute, these really detailed checklists to the companies in advance. They're sort of at the mercy of their team and data entry and all these things. And so I think CSG, being a new company, just saw that they were sort of acquiring a little bit of like, I don't want to say like analytics debt in some ways, of just like, or data entry debt. And they're like, we're just going to fix this now. And so I know what they're sort of doing and why they're doing it, but it's taken longer than I think they anticipated. I'd like to think that that's all that's happening there. I've gotten a lot of questions of like, hey, is CSG just not updating their pop report because they don't want their grades to, their grading volume to be visible? And I think that's a fair question too. I don't think that's the main reason behind what's happening there, but maybe they're not as they're not pushing forward maybe as fast as they might if things were going like gangbusters over there. So the short answer is like, I'd like to think it's going to be updated sooner than later. It's a bad experience for the consumer at the end of the day. Like, I have cards that I'm looking at, purchasing from CSG that are not on the pop report, and I have no idea what to make of it. Anything that's new, 2022, 2023 is not on their pop report right now. And so, or a very limited number of cards. So anyways, I'd like to think that's not intentional, but I'd like to see it updated sooner than later, just in the sense of it's important and like people obviously value it. And if like CSG wants to continue to build momentum, having a accurate pop report's a big part of that.
Yeah. I'm going to pretend not pretend. I don't understand any of how API calls work and any of that. So if you want to take this one, feel free. If not, that's fine. It even says right below, you don't have to answer this one. But I'm going to pretend like I know what some of those words in that sentence means.
Without naming companies, did you have to teach anyone database structure for API calls? No, I mean, maybe I'm misinterpreting the question, but I mean, everything that I pull is through the pop report. And so, I actually, as a business, have an API where I distribute sort of the universal pop report, where I do a lot of work merging the different grading companies' data sets and then delivering it to like collection management tools, for example. So, I don't actually have direct access to any APIs from any company. I have an API business right now that is a part of how Generate monetizes. But as far as like the grading companies themselves or anything like that, it's all sort of the same information that we all see. I just have a system in place to make use of it through programming.
How is the universal pop report stuff coming along?
It's good. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's we're a very small team. I have 2 full-time contractors that help me, and it's a lot of work. It's messy data, and it's part of why I love it. Is like, if you didn't love this stuff, you would have given up, many months ago, just because it's really nasty data. But we have almost 500,000 cards that have been matched, and it covers about 70% of cards that have ever been graded, in the sense of like, if you were to type in a cert, for example, there's 7 out of 10 of them we're going to have covered in the universal pop report as of this month. And so it's pretty comprehensive, and it's skewed or biased towards the more popular cards or the higher value cards. There's a long tail of cards where low serial numbered cards from 2008 that maybe we haven't gotten to yet, and there's probably a lot of those examples. But like, we're covering most of what matters, and then we'll sort of continue to tax the file. But it's good. It's most of it, though. Think of it from the perspective of like, I'm looking at a card at a show, and I want to know how many of these exist for the company that that slabbed it, but also sort of all the other grading companies. That's sort of the lens we have now. As far as displaying the information as like a true universal pop report, where you can go online and look at it and say like, oh, I want to look at 2021 Prism basketball, and I want to see it combined, or be able to sort of like slice and dice it, or sort of filter in different grading companies. The data's there. It's more just presentation, and I just haven't focused on that yet. But the data is available. What I'm thinking I might do, and this is where I'll have to reach out to the community a little bit more, is I just need feedback on what people want to see. Everybody says they want this universal pop report, but I don't have a lot of active feedback on like what people would actually do with it, how they'd like to see it presented. So it's close in the sense that the data's there, but it's still far away in the sense that I haven't really built like the templates or sort of the display for what I think is going to be most productive. But it's getting there. But most of the data is there. It's just how we make use of it now.
Is that live yet on your actual site for people to go in and play around in, or no? Is it just back end, like feeding it the card ladder and stuff?
No, it's just if people, for example, wanted to see some sets, we could start to roll out sets for universal pop report. Say, for example, people send me 5 sets that they'd like to see what a universal pop report would look like, and wanted to start providing me feedback on that. We could have those up in a week and let people start to kick the tires on it. I get a little bit nervous about windowing something where I can't sort of service the broader universe of cards. And so I've been pretty patient about this. I've been building the universal pop report for almost 1.5 years now, behind the scenes, without publishing a lot or updating a lot of things on the website related to it. But, I'm also sort of the mindset of like, I want to get feedback before I build something, and spend a ton of time on it. So I'd be happy to start to release some of that stuff. So anyways, that's part of why, you and I talk. You're always sort of thinking about like, here's what I'd like to see. If there's people in the chat that have ideas around like sets that they think would be really productive for them as it relates to like a universal pop report, and how they want to see it sort of all in one, combined interface, and how they might actually make use of it, that would be really productive. But anyways, it's there. It's just a matter of sort of putting it to work.
Do you think long-term you ever see yourself dumping that into like an app or something?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm trying not to be competitive with companies that, subscribe to the API and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit, conservative on that front, but trying to think about things that might be incremental to it, very specific. For example, I have an app that I only personally use when I'm at shows right now, where I can type in a cert or snap a picture of a cert, or upload a picture of a slab and extract the cert from it, and not only get the pop report data back for that specific slab, but all the other companies that have graded it, right?
Oh, I need access to the dark web Generate app. Jeez,
oh yeah, no, that exists. It's fast and it's good. It's a real, I mean, I love it. It's I use it all the time, just when I'm at home or when I'm at a show or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just sort of like souped it up so it's a lot faster than it was a couple months ago. But yeah, I mean, if people wanted to start kicking the tires on that stuff, I'm not trying.
We need a beta tester.
yeah, it's for sure. It's not, there's some corners that I've cut. It's not perfect, but by any means, and it's definitely like a beta or like an MVP. But the app is pretty cool.
I think, yeah, I'll definitely be sliding in your DMs on that one later in the week. I think an interesting one would be, and I know that you could probably run this now to something, probably to a greater degree than what I realized. And I think we've even talked about this in DMs before. It would be interesting to see like a report. And this ties into Universal Pop Report, but this is kind of almost like a content creation thing, is where my mind is going with this. Like, what serial number cards have the most inflated pop report? Like, and what I mean by this is like a card is a Luka rookie is numbered out of 99, but it has 150 on the pop report. Like, like, what are the top 10 cards that are like the highest percentage over their serial numbered top number?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm getting at there?
Totally. Yeah. That would be, I mean, we did chat about this briefly, and like, you know, the challenge is sort of just having the metadata of what the serial number is for every card. But I mean, yeah, you could see some, for example, if you were to look at like 2016 Bowman, and you just be like, you see just how many times.
Yeah, just Soto, just a 2016 first Bowman Soto.
Yeah, the gold has like 80.
And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. 499 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
or even the gold out of 50 or whatever.
50, you know, obviously 50 serial numbered, but there's 80s, you know, that have been cracked and resubbed. And so, you know, it's just like there's a lot of those, you know. So when people ask, and I heard this even on you know, Sports Card Live with Jeremy Lee the other day, it's like, you know, people are always wondering like how many cards have been cracked and resubbed. For the high value cards, a lot. It's the significant majority, not that many. But for the high value cards, people know, and they'll just stay committed to it, and they'll know it just takes 1 out of 10 for it to be worth it a lot of times. And so people will do it, and you'll see that on some of these. I mean, I laugh because I'm just going through and I'm like, oh wow, that black of one of one has been seen now by every grading company, and I could just pick out like all of them.
It's a 101 black, but it's pop 4.
which at some point might be data that'll be useful, right? Because you're like, okay, this is not like the cleanest black 1 of 1. It might say, you know, whatever, you know, I don't know where it ends up, but you know, there's a world where like that metadata might be useful and just help people make better decisions. You know, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. If people want the card, they're going to pay for it. But you might, I do think like people will always say like, why does it matter with a 1 of 1, for example, anyways, but people are comparing 1 of 1s to other 1 of 1s today. There's a ton of options and there's a lot of dilution out there. And so anyways, it matters. So, but yes, that's really interesting. And that would be a fun, I mean, I think people would eat that up in the sense of there's obviously like no other way to sort of understand what that world looks like as far as like cards. I mean, you know, cards that have been over subbed or subbed more than the serial number. And we definitely have that. It's a lot of work. I have to think about how to pull in a little bit of that metadata, or maybe I just sort of narrow the focus around a couple sets.
I think the way to do it would be like, to your example, let's go back to 2016 Bowman, like, just look at like, because really, I mean, I'm probably going to forget someone, but it's really like Soto and Tatis out of that set.
Right. So
it's like, what are the top parallels? You know, maybe you go from like red out of 5 down to like the refractor out of 499. And especially back then, because 2016, you didn't have parallel madness where there was like 55 different numbered parallels. You know, you're probably talking about maybe 10 or 15. I don't know.
Right.
But like, look at their pop reports and just see like how many of them are like way out of variance to like where it should actually be.
Yeah.
Because the other thing you have to remember is like, even if the card's out of 20 or 15, there's still a lot of that stuff probably sitting in sealed wax somewhere. Totally. It's not like it's all been pulled.
Totally. I mean, you know, that's the challenge with this is, you know, I mean, you can definitely like extrapolate a lot from pop reports, but there's just certain cards where it's, you know, it's nonsensical in the sense of it's not that useful or productive because you just can't tell how many times, how much. And it's not manipulation. It's just that's what the system incentivizes today. Like you should crack and resub a lot of cards because there's flaws in the system and there's, you know, a subjective element to it. And so it's a challenge.
Me makes a comment here about Pokemon and Weiss having higher BGS Pristine and Black Label. I mean, I think that's pretty well known that TCG typically does grade a little bit better. I don't know how deep you get into the weeds on that. I mean, I know that you do like the TCG stuff, but I don't know if you've like done any dives for anyone in regards to. I remember there was like that whole thing was like a month or two ago about like Beckett's just handing out 10s now, and I don't think the data actually represented that, at least on the sports card side.
Yeah,
but I think there was maybe a little bit of an increase maybe on the TCG side, but that's. I don't want to say that that's normal, but TCG just tends to grade well, especially Japanese TCG. The QC on that stuff is just really on point.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been a factor. I mean, there was a lot of talk. It was actually the grading scale changes that I think people were catching wind of, but people thought maybe that was related to the black label. And the black label stuff is, I think, pretty organic in the sense of it just, if you look at the gem rate numbers, like almost 50%, if not more, of what Beckett's been grading has been TCG. And it's because people know that a black label stands out when all quality is sort of the same. You get a lot of 10s out of a lot of those sets. And so, you know, PSA 10s. And so to have a black label, it sets you apart from a PSA card. And so a lot of people are willing to send it in knowing that their, you know, their downside's not that significant. And they know that there's a decent chance at them, you know, 5 or 10% chance of getting, I'm making that up. It's probably not that high. Maybe it's 5% chance of getting a black label, or at least 10% chance of getting a pristine or something like that. But anyway, it's definitely worth the gamble. And that's been influencing a lot of like what Beckett sees, and also just the numbers that we present as it relates to like the percentage going up. I don't think they're great. I don't think their grading standards have changed in advance of like, hey, we're making grading scale changes. Let's start to soft, you know, launch a new standard. It's more just a different mix of cards.
Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure. And I don't think that they've. I agree. It's been more of an organic shift because I think of the nature of more TCG is getting produced out of Japan, and a lot of people are flocking more towards like even Japanese versions of the cards themselves in the TCG market. So you're getting like that little higher level of QC from those sets and packs.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the PSA numbers, I mean, it's, you know, 80-90% gem rates on a lot of these ultra modern TCG sets out of Japan and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy, which is, you know, makes grading a little bit, you know, that's one of the pros and cons of this current, you know, QA sort of manufacturing challenge, QC manufacturing challenge is like, you know, 20 years from now, we're going to be happy that half these cards are coming out, you know, PSA 8s and, you know, not gem mint by any means. Now it kind of sucks because wax is so expensive, and, you know, grading is sort of the bailout for expensive wax in a lot of ways. And so people, you know, turn to grading to sort of help them recoup a lot of costs, and it just doesn't really work that way today. But the good news is, you know, despite the kind of massive, you know, print runs, you know, quality hasn't been great. So we'll at least see some reasonable pop reports, you know, 10 years from now.
Yeah, for sure. And Perk talks about inflated pop reports for certain types of cards. There are going to be a lot of slab. I mean, there already are, but, you know, you fast forward, let's just say even 5 years, the amount, like you go to a card show now and you just see like boxes and boxes of like dollar cards that are penny sleeved. I just feel like in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be like that, but it's just going to be slabs.
Oh yeah, we're just paying for nicer top loaders these days for most of these cards. It's just more secure top loaders.
I was looking at something the other day. I don't know how I stumbled on this. I don't remember what I was looking at. And it was like the price of a PSA 10 base prism for like Darius Garland is like $10 or $12 or something. And I didn't realize, because I don't usually look up base ultra modern base prism very often unless it's like 2017, 2016 stuff. Even like before that, I haven't looked at like 2019, 2020 stuff for a while on base prism prices, especially someone that's not like Luka, Zion, Ja, whatever. And no shine against, I know, you know, Gem Rate's like a closet Cleveland fan. To pull up Garland and see there was like $12 for a base prism PSA 10, I'm like, man, like this stuff's gonna ace. So much of this stuff is gonna be in 50-cent dollar boxes, like probably not even 5 years, probably less. I mean, you look at the numbers and they're grading like PSA specifically, 1.2 million cards per month are coming onto the market. Like, where the hell are they all going? Like, totally. So much plastic.
Well, and half of that almost is TCG, and you know, TCG is very low. They're low cost in a PSA 10 typically. I mean, the margin might still be there. You know, you might get a card for 10 and PSA 10 it, and it's a $50 card, and that's, you know, worth it at $15 when the sort of math plays out. But, you know, it's not a big margin for error there, and you know, there's a lot of slabs of that, you know, 500,000 TCG that's been pumped out. You know, the significant majority of those are less than $50 in a PSA 10. And so I just wonder, like, where the heck are they going? And like, how quickly are those going to be moving around? Because there's a ton of that happening. And it's not, you know, I don't know the TCG world well enough. I'm trying to learn it, but like, I don't know if those become more or less productive once they're slabbed for you as it relates to like what you could do with them. I'm assuming they're less productive. And so they become much more of a collectible at that stage than anything you would ever use and play with. I think it definitely differs. Like I know some people play with like graded Magic cards and stuff like that. At least that's my understanding. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know where they're going. And I'm just curious to see like, I mean, dilution has definitely been sort of the thing that people I feel like don't fully grasp about the hobby these days, which is like the market is actually really fairly strong in the sense of like the absolute dollars, but it's just like there's so many parallels out there and so many different cards and options that everything just gets distributed across such like a breadth of options. And you know, these slabs contribute to a lot of that. Like they're contributing to a lot of price erosion and just sort of like I don't know, like I mean, what you're saying, there's just a ton of slabs out there and it's definitely having an impact, even though I think the market's actually like much stronger than a lot of people think because of the actual volume of dollars being moved around. It just looks a lot worse from sort of the traditional metrics of looking at a singular card and sort of how it has trended versus prior years. But if you were to collectively, like I've even exchanged emails with like Dr. Beckett about this, but if you were to look at like a GDP of a player instead, that might be like a much more representative metric around like how well a certain player or the hobby's doing in the sense of like, okay, you know, because you know you have so many people investing in Cade Cunningham, or whatever. If you have a ton of people investing in Cade Cunningham, maybe month over month it's actually like pretty decent, and it maybe compares pretty similar to what people were investing in LaMelo the year prior. But because the print run is so much higher for the Cade class versus the LaMelo class, it just looks like a PSA 10 Prism is down versus LaMelo, for example. But the absolute dollars invested in Cade might actually be pretty reasonable. It might be close to LaMelo, for example. Again, I'm making that up. I don't know that any of that. But like when you look at things in total, it probably tells a much better story. But this, like, you know, the amount of cards being graded, the amount of parallels, the dilution in the hobby really tells a bad story as it relates to like individual card prices. But in aggregate, I think it's actually like much less worse.
Yeah, the thing that always scared me to, like, you go back, and I actually did this one day. I debated like doing a video on it, but for whatever reason, I ended up pulling the trigger on it. I went back to like the mid 90s up, I think, or like from 1990, or I forget. I think it was right after Jordan retired up until like 05 or something. And I just looked at all NBA teams, like first team all NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And like just kind of went through each individual player, and I'm like, no one cares about that guy's cards. No one cares about that guy's cards. Totally. Like this player in a PSA 10 that went to like 4 straight all NBA teams, was an NBA All-Star, maybe even won a ring. Their PSA 10 rookie sells for peanuts. The pop is nothing on it because it's cards from the late 90s, early 2000s. And they don't have a billion parallels. They don't have a bunch of different serial numbered cards. There's not Prism, Select, Optic, Flawless, Recon, whatever else that's out there.
Yep.
And that card, even in its slightly limited fashion, sells for like $50. And this is a player that has had an amazing career, insert whoever you want there. And now you fast forward to today, and it's just like, I can go down the all NBA team again. And it's like, if the guys from the 90s and early 2000s that have limited pop count, that had great careers, sell for practically nothing, what the hell is going to happen in 15, 20 years with the stuff right now that has, to your point, just waves of slabs hitting the market? Now, you're talking at a way wider range of price points, from entry-level base Prism up to, true RPAs from NT or Flawless or whatever, but still there's just so much stuff out there. I just don't know how that stuff ages long term.
Yeah. I mean, most of it, I think people at least are coming to the realization that most stuff does go to zero. And my big thing, and people don't really frame it this way, this is how I frame it, it sort of resonates with me, but like cards are very much fashion in my opinion. And like, you want to sort of showcase the things that are new and shiny, and like, sure, there's a lot of value in those older NBA players, but it's like a pair of sneakers that are 30 years old. They were really great and really productive for you, but like nobody cares anymore if you bring out, unless it's like some pumps that people actually like really found interesting and sort of like stand the test of time. And even then, they're probably not worth that much. People might still appreciate it. And like with cards, it's like everybody wants the new rookies, and everybody there's a lot. These are expressions of our identity. Is like, I collect Mobleys, and I try to collect like Mobleys that are like low. It's hard. That's not going to work. But like low print run Mobleys, and like I know Mobley's not going to be, you know, that desirable of a player long term, even if he does become like a Garnett or Duncan like player, which is obviously like a big stretch. You know, that's a best case scenario. But it's like, yeah, but I like the Cavs, and I like the low number stuff, and I like the second tier brands of Panini and case hits and stuff like that. And like there's a lot of options out there. But yeah, I mean, like the reality is most of this stuff is just sort of how I express what I like and what I collect. And I don't even post that much to Instagram. I was actually talking to like the card letter guys recently at Mint, and I was asking them the question, like I'll ask you the same question, but like if you had to go to the National, I think it'd be really interesting. Like if you had to wear your sort of, you know, your necklace, your Logan Paul necklace to the National, like what would you wear? And like, why would you be wearing it? Like, what's your card that would showcase like what you care about, right? And is it going to be something that like showcases like aspirationally what you like? Is it something that sort of showcases, you know, functionally like what you're looking for that day? Like, are you trying to be humble? Are you trying to flex? Like, what would you personally wear to the National this, you know, in Chicago this year? If you had one card, and what purpose would it be serving for you? And like, I think if everybody sort of asked themselves that, like a lot of times we're just showcasing kind of like, you know, what we care about, and like cards are one way to represent that, and we just pay a lot of money sometimes to do that.
Yeah, and I think you've been noticing, and I mean, I think this kind of just comes organically as kind of people move throughout and stay in this longer. You have seen like, I think more people kind of starting to look backwards and be like, let me move off some of this ultra modern stuff and go back and kind of get some of these things that are slightly more, you know, I hate to use the word safe because nothing's really truly safe, but like I'll use myself for example, like, you know, let me sell some of this ultra modern stuff off and go buy a Harrison Ford auto, you know, you know, it's not necessarily sports cards, but you know, a Star Wars Stellar Harrison Ford auto. I keep going to that one because it's my most recent big purchase, but it's kind of like, yeah, that could go down, it could go up, but I feel like that has a way better floor than you know, even a green Tatum Prism, which I love. It's gonna be so like, let's, you know, let's just assume Luka is like, he ends up, the Mavericks figure out what they're doing, or he leaves them and he goes on and wins 5 NBA championships or whatever. You know, 30 years from now, if he is like in the conversation with LeBron and Jordan and Kobe and all those guys, like what are going to be like the 3 or 4 cards that really matter of his or any ultra modern player? Is it a color match? Is it an NT RPA that may or may not be a game used jersey depending on what year it was, you know? And I don't know that anyone knows, because what it is today might not be that way in 15 or 20 years. We don't really know for sure, you know, like, I don't know, PMGs were always pop, like the Jordan PMG was always a big deal, but I feel like it's way bigger of a deal now than when it was when that card first came out, like to use that as an example. Like I know that was always like a Grail chase card, but I don't know that it was at the level that it is now. Maybe it was, and I just don't realize it because I wasn't like in the weeds like I am now back then, but I don't know.
Right. No, I mean, if you read, I've gone through, I read so much history and watch so much old content in this world. Like if you go back and read Blowout, there's a lot of people who talk about how it was like, you know, it's a thing, but it wasn't like the main thing. And it certainly like wasn't a, you know, it was a fraction of what it is today as it relates to like the importance of that card in the hobby. Like people cared about it, but you know, it took people like the Nats of the world and other collectors to sort of like start to accumulate these sets and sort of put together some higher profile collections before that really took off as like, and I'm sort of, you know, paraphrasing here, and I'm sort of probably like doing a disservice to what actually happened there. But point being is, yeah, it was not like as obvious, and we don't know what's going to be the obvious, you know, none of us know what's obvious, you know, today as it relates to like what's going to be relevant 10 years from now, which is part of what makes this exciting, right? I mean, that's part of what, if we all knew what the playbook was, we'd all be doing the same thing. It'd be pretty boring. If we all wore the same safe vintage card to the National, it'd be a pretty freaking boring National of like, okay, cool. We're all wearing like 86 Jerry Rices and 81 Montanas and like, you know, whatever, like all these cards that are cool. And, you know, they're probably good investments in that they probably will accumulate some value over the long term, but you know, that's pretty boring. And so, yeah, I think that's why I love Bowman. That's why I love hearing your Bowman stuff now. I love like Bowman. You don't know anything about these prospects. It's like a data disadvantage for most people. But for me, it's like, you know, there's an opportunity to learn more and sort of be ahead of sort of the consensus. And so, you know, that's why I like this stuff. But yeah, I mean, who knows? But yes, I mean, that's a huge part of the fun of it, is that there's just a lot of unknowns. Which is why, like, even with the data stuff, it's like, I know there's a limit. Like, there shouldn't be like, if all the data was out there and everything was accessible, it wouldn't be as fun. Like, there's definitely got to be a little bit of like search and hunt and, discovery to this process.
Yeah. And Rage, I know that it was definitely a Grail back then, but I don't feel like it was on the same level of Grail that it is now. Like I said, I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Since you mentioned Bowman, we'll wrap up on this because the Lakers Nuggets are about to head into the fourth quarter. Yeah, and I'd like to sneak out and watch at least like the last 5 or 10 minutes of that game. And it's a very close game, it appears. 2 topics. One, what's your general thought on 2023 Bowman? Like, good checklist, bad checklist, liking it, ripping it, chasing anyone? You don't have to give any specific names or anything, but just like in general, your overall vibes on the most recent Bowman release.
I think it's overhyped. I mean, Drew Jones is the high profile prospect, and he's, had a rough year. He was hurt last year, has had a rough start, hurt again. Doesn't really profile to be like the power guy, and like he's the marquee player. But former Guardian / Indian Junior Caminero is the like hyped prospect now. A lot of people are chasing him. We traded him for a guy that's no longer on our team. And he's like a 19-year-old stud that a lot of people are really excited about, and he's climbing up a lot of charts. You never know. That's the beauty of Bowman, is you can have cards, for 3 years in your, collection that mean nothing, and then all of a sudden are, of interest. And that's kind of the exciting part of it, but it's okay. I think the thing that Bowman has done that's been smart is they really reduced pitchers in the checklist. And that was a big, when I got back into the hobby and started collecting Bowman, there was a lot of pitchers in it, and people just really don't, for whatever reason, even though like we look at like Nolan Ryan's of the world, and like that's like what people collect from a lot of the 60s cards and early 70s cards, but like people don't love pitchers these days for whatever reason.
There's like you could almost kind of like roll through it. There's like 1 pitcher, maybe 2 per like generation that really catches on, like. So when I grew up, it was, I caught the tail end of Nolan Ryan, and I'll probably forget someone here because I'm just going off the top of my head, but like Greg Maddux is pretty collectible. Like he was, a dominant force for a long period of time, and as Indians fans tormented us for a World Series, and just really just dominated the league for a stretch there. The other guy that I always think of too, which I know, and maybe I'm in my own Topps Dynasty bubble because his stuff sells for a pretty large chunk comparative to other pitchers, is like Randy Johnson. His stuff seems to sell pretty well. Once again, kind of like a larger than life, like amazing pitcher, obviously, but also like had this other level. Like there was like the him versus Kruk stuff. Like he exploded a bird throwing a fastball.
Totally.
Like, I mean, he was one of probably the most intimidating physical presences on the mound that we've had in forever. Maybe, I don't know, at least in recent memory. This generation, I don't know what, Kershaw is pretty collectible, isn't he? I know he's still active. Ohtani is going to be a unicorn all on his own. I don't know. I'm trying to think someone from like the mid 2000s to current that would be on that level. I'm probably just blanking on someone.
It's probably, it's like Kershaw's close, or like, but like Verlander, nobody cares. It's like, and he's put together a great career, and like, I guess like Mo Rivera is definitely somebody just.
Oh yeah, that would be it. Rivera would be a good
like one. I have one Rivera card in my collection, and everybody asks about it whenever I bring it out, and it's but he's even a mid 90s guy though, even, and it's like there really hasn't been much in the last 25 years.
Pedro, I feel like doesn't get the love for as good as he was.
Right.
Like, because he falls into that like Randy Johnson, Maddux. I mean, he kind of like overlapped. I guess he was a little later than some of those guys. He overlapped with RJ, I guess, a little bit. I just never see like Pedro Martinez cards. Like I see like some dynasty stuff pop up, but I can't tell you the last time I saw like a Pedro Martinez rookie card or like a rare refractor insert or something like that.
Yeah, he's interesting. Sometimes when I'm looking at the grading data, I'll see somebody making a play on Pedro stuff. I'm like, yeah, he is kind of one of the guys that you can probably do well with, and also just people care about. But to your point, yeah, it's not obvious like what people collect with Pedro, but he definitely like was that guy. Like I, as a fan of the Indians, whenever we were playing against him, I was like, oh
my gosh,
there goes that game, right? Or he came out of the bullpen.
Was that an ALDS or the ALCS when they brought him out of the bullpen on like 2 days rest, and he just like mowed us down for 5. Like they brought him in to close out the game, And as soon as he came out of the bullpen, I'm like, well, this is done.
Horrible. So yeah, I mean, he was definitely like that
monster.
kind of presence, but for whatever reason, hasn't carried over yet to his collecting. And it's surprising too because he's on TV and he's still active, and relevant. But yeah.
Yeah, Hustle
But
brings up a point that is like his rookie card just sucks, which could be part. I think Mo Rivera is kind of tortured with that too. Isn't his rookie card like him in a polo shirt, looking like he's part of Miami Vice?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of his. But yeah, sorry, I derailed the Bowman thing. There's just to close I think Bowman. I think it's good, but it's like hard to know.
Yeah. Are you, and where I wanted to kind of wrap with this, we talked about this earlier. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of it or not, but are you chasing Sapphire tomorrow?
No.
Are you going to feed into the evil monopoly greed machine of the Dutch auction?
No, I'll pick my spots. I might do a couple breaks with it. I usually try to find a couple teams that I just feel like are undervalued, and I'll do a couple breaks with it. But I don't love. I mean, I think you've had good videos on this in the sense of like people don't fully understand like the print run situation with it, and like what that might mean for the actual price of the box relative to where it's been. And there are going to be breakers that sort of float the price for a while, and so it's just going to be expensive. And so I'm going to let it sort of play out a little bit. Well, Sapphire is weird. I really like Sapphire, and I think they're great cards. I think they're still, though, like I have some nice Sapphire cards in my collection. They don't move nearly at like the same velocity that like the actual like Bowman autos do. Even like Bowman refractors, are challenged sometimes. But Sapphire is they're nice looking, but it's not totally clear like what they're gonna how they're gonna play out over the the long run. But I like Sapphire, but I won't be buying any tomorrow. That's for sure.
I feel like Sapphire is a bigger deal for the actual like Topps Chrome release, not the Bowman release.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Sense. I think what happened was it got super hyped because of like Ohtani's year had like him and Acuna and all those guys, and it was a super short print run. Like Ohtani's PSA 10 pop on his Sapphire is really low. I think Filmington had one at one point in time.
Yeah.
And then it slowly started to inflate. But yeah, like tomorrow's release, I don't know if the price gets low enough. I'm sure I'll be dumb and buy a box or two. I don't know if I'll open them or not, but I talked about this earlier, but we'll kind of close out on this. Like on paper, this is exactly what we wanted them to do. They cut the print run in half. Yeah. They juiced it. They juiced the auto checklist. They juiced the parallel checklist. Everyone should be like, yes, this is great.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone wants to see it sold at the Panini version of a Dutch auction. If you're going to do it that way, just do the zero cool version.
Right.
Don't have a floor, sell it at the lowest clearing price, have faith in your product. And I think if they did that, I think people would be making videos being like, yes, like this is, I mean, some segment would just be mad to be mad. But generally speaking, if you were looking at this objectively, if they came out with that product as is and did a zero cool style Dutch auction, anyone looking at it objectively, I think would be like, okay, these guys get it. Like totally. They took a premium product, didn't overprint it, and are putting it to market in what is fair to both the consumer and the company. Yeah. But instead they went the Panini route, and now everyone's instantly like
triggered,
money grab, monopoly, evil, dying of fire, all this stuff. So it's like they got there and then they just didn't take it across the finish line. So I'm hoping that they take this as a learning experience and then change going forward. But I am not feeling great that that's what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like that you've been like tagging like Michael Rubin and Fanatics and stuff. I do think they're going to try to be much more like approachable and accessible in the hobby. And so like, maybe we'll start to get some feedback, or at the very least know that they're reading what we're writing and are saying about this. And so I agree. I think they were like going in the right direction and then sort of like abandoned ship last minute and sort of protected themselves a bit. And it sort of just sends mixed signals around like, what are they going to do that's different? And like, what are they going to pull in that's sort of the same that we don't love? And this is definitely like very familiar territory. And if I play it through and like they did do the zero cool thing, it's like, it's hard to know that like, again, with the smaller print run and the breaking community, it's really hard to know like what that even does there still. It's like, you probably end up in pretty close to the same spot anyway. So, I don't know. I don't know if it makes that big of a difference. It's just the perception is really shitty in the sense of like where this all triggered and we don't like the process. So
exactly. To your point, I think I'm sure that they'll probably make like a couple, an extra 10% or something, maybe doing it the way that they're doing it. But is that worth the PR hit that they're kind of taking on it? with the way that they released this. One, like they were kind of like sneaky about it, like waiting till the very last minute to announce that this was what they were doing. It was supposed to release Wednesday, but they pushed it back 2 days. It leaked kind of because they made the website live and then quickly pulled it. Like the way that they've kind of handled this has been kind of botched from a couple different angles, in my opinion. But to your point, if they would have just did it the Zero Cool way, I don't know that it still would have sold out at a really strong number. Right. It's a limited print run product that says Bowman and it says Sapphire on it. You're hitting every keyword that you need to hit in for it to sell at a good number. They weren't going to lose on it, that's for sure.
People would have been speaking to all the strengths that you've mentioned. Yeah, a much more selective auto list and all these things, lower perm runs. Instead, it's focusing on the negative. But yeah, I mean, people would have hyped it up on all those things you're saying if it was the other way around with the no floor Dutch auction where everybody pays the same price. So, oh wait, hey, sorry for hijacking a little bit. This is your celebration. This is your 3 years, man.
No, this is what I want. I just know you, especially since you've never really been on here before, so it's good to have
But you kind of punted on my necklace question. I mean, I know you said Harrison Ford, but let's put that one aside. What are you wearing hypothetically to the National? If you could wear one card, like what's your card? What's your showcase card? And what are you trying to convey about Neo? Rob, what's the story? What's the card?
It would be this side. I didn't realize that was a direct question towards me. I thought that was like I asked the card ladder guys this question. So
I wanted to know. Yeah, you're.
It would probably be the Pedro auto.
Okay.
The Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, you do love that.
Yeah, it would probably be that one. That card, I chased it, and I mean this goes hand in hand with the Ford, so it's kind of the same reasoning for both cards. I chased both those cards for probably well over a year, close to a year.
Yeah.
Because that particular set, those particular actors / characters, especially even the Pedro is actually way more, even though the print run's the same. The Pedro is more rare. Actually, I guess it's lower because he's only been in one set, whereas Harrison Ford's been in 3 sets. They just don't come to market. And it took a year of like being in the right Facebook groups and, right. And it was a very much right place, right time. I just happened to pull up and look at my phone at lunch and someone just happened to post one and they sell super fast. And I commented immediately and he accepted, like it was only live for like 15 minutes. So like just the narrow of that window of like being in the right group, looking for it all the time, happen to look at it, happen to close the deal, all like the confluence of events that had to happen to get that card. Otherwise, I had the opportunity to buy one about 3 or 4 months after I got this one. So I probably would have ran into it eventually. It would have been at a slightly higher price. And I get more questions about that card than any card that I own by a mile. Like I get more, hey, is that available than any other card that's on my desk?
Yeah, that's a good fitting answer. I think that speaks to your style and approach to collecting perfectly. Like, even though you do a lot of sports card stuff, like you definitely have a lot of other angles and things that are appealing to you. And I think that's a very representative card. I think that's a good answer. No wrong answer, obviously, but I like that. I think given I listen to everything you say, that fits the
What's yours?
I just acquired a LeBron Contra that I posted to my Instagram a couple weeks ago, which is to 3, and it's from 2020, which I just really like the design of it. And it graded well, and it's one of those cards that I know there's only 9 of them that have ever been printed across 3 years so far, and I just really love the design. And so it just speaks to like I like LeBron obviously because of the Cavs ties, and I think he's obviously going to stand the test of time of being relevant and somebody that maybe people will appreciate even more so down the line. And I really try to collect stuff that's going to be very rare, but also just as eye appeal to it. And this Contra is beautiful, so that's my sort of. That's kind of speaks to like my place in the hobby. I'm not active or like go big on like anything that's super expensive, but I like to carve out like my niches that are. You can find some cards of value that showcase well, but maybe aren't like the high profile cards in the hobby. Well, certainly are. Most of them
knowing you, that's a fitting answer because you like to your point, you like the, I don't want to call it weird, but like the in the weeds, like I look through your cards when we're together at a show and I'm like, it's all ultra modern and it's like players that I know. And I like flip through your case and I'm like, I had no idea half these cards existed.
Totally. That's what I love. Right. And I'm hoping, that just whatever, I just like it. And like, it speaks to sort of like the angle that I want to carve on. And I've been buying more cards that are like $10 to $50 over the last year. and like having more fun in the hobby, just buying all this cheap stuff that I like, versus when I was like trying to, buy and sell stuff a lot more actively that was more expensive. So definitely found
Yeah,
my
one of my favorite purchases recently was that lot of Manny Ramirez refractors that I bought, and that was like, I don't know, those averaged anywhere from 50 to maybe $150, depending on the individual. Like some were even were like 10 or 15, and some were like 75. But like just flipping through those, I was like, oh, these are great. And they weren't like, it's not the dollar figure attached to the card. And I think we all lose track of that on occasion.
Right. No, absolutely.
So, all right, chat, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. There's
I saw
7
real quick
minutes left in this game. It's basically tied.
Yeah, I saw earlier LeBron too. He missed the layup, pretty easy layup. He had a clear lane to the hoop, and then he fumbled a windmill dunk. So I'm hoping that he's put it back together, because I am kind of hoping the Lakers push this to at least 7. So
I'm rooting for the Joker in this one. I love LeBron. If he's not playing the Warriors, I can't root for him in the Lakers jersey.
He's a lot more fun.
I don't like cheer against him. I just don't like actively like, I'm not gonna like stand up and lose my mind if he throws down a dunk in a game.
Yeah.
I love him, but like, I don't know, just that yellow Lakers jersey, I can't. It's not like when he was on the Heat. When he was on the Heat, I actively hated the dude. At the way that all went down. But you come home and you put a championship in the rafters. That cures a lot of wounds that I once had for that man.
Totally. So. All right. Well, congrats on the milestone. Look forward to 4 and 5, and just keep up the good work. And thanks for always shouting out the Gemerate stuff. And thanks to everybody who was in the chat that also sort of was just shouting out Gemerate. I appreciate it. But this is
for sure. Yeah, chat's been great. Absolutely all night. I know I didn't get to every single comment. And the next time we'll probably be in person will be the National, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Are you coming this way for anything, or?
I'll be there. Yeah.
Now and then. So yeah, National will be. Are you there all 5?
I am. Yeah, I'm doing sort of the long run there. Yeah.
Do you actually get to enjoy the show, or is it more like businessy stuff? Okay.
I mostly try to just take on the consumer perspective and bounce around. I try not to do too many meetings and stuff like that. I mean, I have some, but I try to just like enjoy the show, just take it in and think about like what I love and what opportunities exist. Yeah.
After hours, that's when all the businessy stuff happens. That's when you get all the gossip. That's where all the juicy stuff is after hours.
There's plenty of that in this hobby, that's for sure.
Yeah, not a lack of that. So, all right, chat, you've been fantastic. No video tomorrow. Taking tomorrow off because I did the live stream, and then I'll have the Swaggle House collab on Saturday for a nice long form. If anything wild happens, I'll post something up tomorrow. I'm waiting any minute to get the Victor Wembanyama as a Fanatics exclusive autograph. I think that's going to happen. We'll see what happens, because that would be some pretty big news and be a gut punch to Panini if that actually goes down. But we'll see if it gets formally announced or not. But catch you later, everyone. Ryan, thanks for hanging out. Dustin, you're long gone, but thanks for popping in for a little bit as well. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Later, everyone.